November 14th and from our joint meeting with the Light Rail Subcommittee on December 14th. Are the minutes for both of those meetings carried? Carried, thank you. We have one response to an inquiry on park and rides. That was from Councillor Desroches. Are there any requests to lift that item for discussion today?
Could I hold it for a comment, Chair? Or a question, sorry.
With the will of committee, can we entertain questions on that one? This is the inquiry response on park and rides. Okay. The commission says yes, Councillor Kitts. If you have a question now, go ahead.
Thank you, Commission. Okay. So I read this inquiry with interest. As you all probably know, I have a very underutilized park and ride in my ward. And I do want to commend my colleague for bringing forward sort of innovative ideas on how we can better utilize these spaces. But both have not been staff supported. So my question is, what is the plan? Is this something that OC TRANSPO is contemplating, that you're looking at these underutilized spaces and you're developing sort of a go-forward strategy for these?
Mr. Chair, as you know, there's a concerted effort all across the city to make best use of all city-owned land, and we are working with our colleagues in planning, real estate, and economic development to explore any options to use park and ride space that isn't currently being used for other purposes, such as permanent or short-term housing.
Okay, and so will those sort of, like, if you determine that a park and ride should be used for housing, that will come forward as a standalone report sometime in the indeterminate future?
Mr. Chair, yes.
Okay. Okay, and then one last question on this inquiry. It didn't seem like anything was costed, and I'm just wondering if it was just that you didn't get to that stage, or if the cost of sort of some of these alternative ideas is being looked at.
Mr. Chair, we're happy to do any additional work that the Commission or Council requires. Our conclusion and recommendation to you is that the cost to do any of these things would be considerably greater than the benefit of either new revenue or new convenience for people. But we're happy to undertake any more work that you direct.
Okay. Thank you, Commission. Appreciate your indulgence. Have a great meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Kitts. I'll also add future use of park and rides is one of the items that the working group on the long-range financial plan is tracking for any future use, including potentially for housing in the future. So yeah, more to come, as Mr. Scrimgeour indicated. Okay, going through our regular items, we have a special presentation this morning from the UITP. We have a regular OC TRANSPO update with delegations. We have a fair compliance report that also has a presentation and delegations. There might be one item that we can carry on consent, the capital adjustments for Transit Commission, unless there are any questions. Are there questions from committee members on the capital adjustments report? Okay, we do have a technical amendment on that. And Councillor Brockington, if I can put you on the spot to introduce that technical amendment, we'll get it up on the screen.
Thank you, Chair. So whereas, whereas additional capital adjustments were identified after the agenda was released on January 30th, 2024, which required changes to the report in supporting document 1. Whereas these capital adjustments have a net zero impact on the overall financials noted in the report, but require council approval. Whereas the revised report and document 1 were distributed to council and published on the city's agendas and minutes web portal on February 7th, 2024. Therefore, be it resolved that the Transit Commission amend the section entitled Recommendation 1, Budget Adjustments Requiring Council Approval of the report as follows. Document 1 presents the budget adjustments requiring council approval. The overall impact of the departmental budget adjustments is a net decrease of $27.731 million in the previously approved net budget authority for the projects listed in Document 1. This resulted in capital funding decreases from transit capital reserves of $21.474 million and $6.635 million of transit debt, plus funding increases of $378,000 for development charges. Included is a transfer of capital authority in support of 2024 costs to recruit, train, and onboard additional operating staff to maintain service reliability, open O-Train lines 2 and 4 in 2024, and be ready to test and open the eastern extension of O-Train line 1 in 2025. The reduction in capital accounts from which the transfers would be made will not have an effect on transit service quality. The return of funds to reserves will provide funding and mitigation to help offset any 2023 shortfall. Be it further resolved that the Transit Commission amend the report supporting Document 1 by adding an additional row attached to this motion and on file with the City Clerk to the bottom of the table on page 1. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brockington. Are there any questions on that technical amendment? Yeah, we'll leave that up on the screen for just a moment. There's a paper version being passed over to you, Councillor Leeper. Request to hold it? Yeah, I'm happy to hold that. Yeah. Okay, we'll hold this till later on in the meeting. Yeah, so we'll come back to that. Thanks, Councillor Leeper. All right, well, let's go back to the start of our agenda. The first item is a presentation from the International Association of Public Transport, and I'm pleased to introduce our special guest here today, Mr. Mohamed Mezgani. He is a passionate advocate for public transport and has worked in this field for over 30 years. He is currently the Secretary General of the International Association of Public Transportation, also known as UITP. Since its inception in 1885, UITP has been committed to advancing urban mobility in sustainable ways and making a difference in the transport industry on a global scale. Ottawa is now a part of a growing North American presence within UITP, and OC TRANSPO is one of over 1,900 members located all around the world. And as many of you know, last June, UITP members elected Renée Amilcar as president of UITP. In this role, Renée has continued her advocacy for sustainable urban mobility and collaborates with members to strengthen diversity and inclusion within public transport. Mohamed and Renée work very closely together, and I'd like to thank Mohamed for being with us here today to share more about UITP and what they're doing around the world. Veuillez accueillir chaleureusement Monsieur Mohamed Mezgani. Good morning.
Please give a warm welcome to Mohamed.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for having me here in this meeting. Very happy to be back to Ottawa after I think more than 30 years. Actually, the last time I was here in Ottawa. Fortunately, I will not have a lot of time to visit Ottawa because I'm here only for one day. But I'm happy to have this opportunity to discuss with you about Ottawa and about public transport mainly. Of course, it's a pleasure to be here. Also, if I'm here in Ottawa, it's also because and thanks to our president, Renée Amilcar, president of UITP, who has been leading UITP since June last year after the election in Barcelona as UITP president. And we are, I must say, we are lucky because we are benefiting from her experience, her knowledge, and commitment also in this field of public transport. So allow me to start with a short video, please, introducing UITP, and then I will pursue my presentation. So may I ask to show the video, please?
Let us paint you a picture. Imagine a world where cities aren't overflowing with cars or clouded in pollution. A world where cities are green, flourishing, dynamic centres of life. Where travelling in cities is smooth and easy. In this world, public transport is the backbone of each healthy city. It's a pretty picture, isn't it? At UITP, this world is our vision, and it's driving us forward. We're creating a worldwide community for those who share this vision: public transport authorities and operators, research institutes, and the supply and service industry. We're providing them with opportunities to grow their business, and we're exchanging ideas and expertise to find local solutions that have a truly global impact. We're collaborating with politicians and decision makers to promote the role of public transport in cities beyond the mobility sphere. And every day the picture is becoming clearer, because we're working to make this vision a reality worldwide. We're UITP, the International Association of Public Transport. Find out more at uitp.org.
Thank you. So, merci encore pour votre
Well,
accueil.
thank you once again for inviting me here, and thank you for giving this opportunity to share with you our vision of public transit at the UITP. So I'd like to ask you, if possible, to put up the slides.
Donc, l'UITP, comme
Now, the UITP
was established in 1885, initially as the Association of Tramway Operators in Europe, and then progressively became the association of all public transport modes and all public transport stakeholders. And our vision in UITP is not focused on public transport only. It's a vision around quality of life in the cities, around well-being of people in the cities, and how public transport can contribute to improve the quality of life and to improve the well-being of people in the cities at the global level. So next slide, please. Yes, so UITP is a passionate champion of sustainable urban mobility, as it was mentioned, and it's the only worldwide association having all public transport stakeholders involved. Generally, the transport association, they either have the operators or the authorities, the regulators, or the supplying industry, or academics, researchers, etc. But in UITP, we have them all under the same umbrella. And we can move to the next slide, please. Yeah, the next one, please. So in UITP, we are a global network of public transport stakeholders, who in total 1,900 members in 100 countries. And this network is operated from 13 offices with headquarters in Europe. And by public transport, we have a wide meaning of public transport. It means that it's not limited to mass transit. It's also embrace on-demand and shared mobility solutions, taxis, ride-hailing, Uber or Lyft-like services, if you want, bike sharing, car sharing, carpooling. So we consider public transport as everything which is not the individual use of cars, because then that's the only way that we see that could make our cities more sustainable, more livable, if we reduce the space and the role of cars. So the next slides. So we have three main missions in UITP. First is the advocacy, means that we engage with decision makers, with international organizations to promote public transport and sustainable mobility, and also to promote the benefits of public transport. Second, if it's that UITP is a center of knowledge about public transport and sustainable mobility, means that we develop expertise, or we use the expertise of our members, actually, and and promote this sharing of knowledge between members. And we also develop knowledge-based services that I will explain later on. And then the third pillar, the third mission, is that we are a platform of networking for our members to discuss the main issues about public transport, but also to exchange ideas and to develop their business for those who are in the business sector. Next slide, please. So concretely, it means that we carry out studies, we develop expertise, we publish studies, we publish statistics, collect and publish statistics. We offer opportunity for our committees to share knowledge. We organize events, we organize training programs. We collect information, of course, statistics and information about public transport, and we are at the, we listen to our members. We are a membership association, and also we listen to our members to see how we can support them in developing their services locally and in improving the efficiency of their operations locally. So next slide, please. So I'm happy to share with you this quote of René quand René a été élu président.
When Rennie was elected president at the UITP, she made this quote. I think it perfectly reflects the goals and the mission of the UITP in terms of public transit.
The election of René as president of UITP, she clearly selected two main topics for her mandate, which is how to make the benefits of public transport more visible towards decision makers. And this is something, of course, that is very important, because sometimes we are not aware about the benefits, and we don't see that public transport is not just a means of transport. It's just not just a mobility solution. It's much more than that. It's about the benefits in terms of access to jobs, in terms of road safety, in terms of decarbonization, of course, in terms of contributing to a better economy. And we have evidence showing that when we invest $1 in public transport, we can generate $4 in the local economy. So this kind of indicators are very important to understand what public transport can do for our cities. And the second topic that René has put as a priority for her mandate is about to grow the role of women in leadership, but women in general in public transport, because unfortunately, only 20% of the people working in public transport are women, and while 60 to 70% of the public transport travelers are women in many cities. So it's important that we balance and we make sure that those who decide, or those who operate, or those who administer public transport reflect also the expectations of the users of public transport. Next slide, please. The next one, please. So, as I said earlier, we are a diverse association with a diversity of stakeholders, and this is our aim is to have the whole ecosystem of public transport involved in UITP, and not to represent, let's say, the interest of a particular group of stakeholders. We are not an association of operators only, or not an association of regulators, or an association of supplying industry. We are a global association, a multimodal association, and what is making all these stakeholders at the end discussing together is to make sure they approach public transport from the perspective of the end user, of the travelers. And this is the common element of all of them, is how to better answer the expectations of the travelers, and how to provide good conditions and good quality public transport. Next slide, please. And this is, here you see the distribution of our members according to the members they operate, or they administer, or they manufacture, I would say. And you see that more than a third are related to bus. Then we have a group of members which are involved in rail transport, be it tramways or light rail, metro, or suburban rail as well. Trolley buses as well. We could merge them with the buses, of course. And then we have this new, let's say, or the more shared and on-demand mobility, like taxis and others. And we just established a division on shared mobility because, as I said earlier, we believe that it's with the integration of shared mobility together with mass transit that we can better offer a door-to-door solution and not just a station-to-station solution. And if we offer this kind of service, we will make the need of using or even owning a car less important and less urgent. And this is what our cities need at the end, is that we distribute the space based on the number of people traveling and not based on the number of vehicles on that space. The next slide, please. Here you see the distribution of members according to their location, to the region of origin. And I'm happy to say that North America is the fast growing region in UITP. Of course, Europe is the leading region. 65% of our members are originally from Europe. I say originally because many of them now have daughter organizations, daughter companies located globally. But North America is the fastest growing region in UITP, where we have the main transit agencies in North America now being part of UITP, and we are very happy of this development, of course. The next slide, please. So here you see we cannot put 1,900 logos on a slide, but just some of our members, and which reflects the diversity of the membership structure in UITP. And as I said, we are present in 100 countries, so you can imagine this diversity. The next slide, please. So this is UITP around the world. This is our offices first. You see the head office in Brussels, regional offices. So on all continents, we have an office, which because we want to be closer to our members, to better understand their expectations, to better understand their how we can support them and especially based on the local conditions. We have also, in addition to our regional offices, we have what we call liaison offices for some big countries where we have an office to deal with the member at national level. And then we have training centers in different countries, and these are, we develop these training centers in collaboration with our members. They are hosted by our members, and the activities we develop there are developed with the members in partnership with them. The next slide, please. Yeah, so we embarked a couple of years ago in defining our vision, which is called People First. And these people are the members, of course, and the staff of UITP. I forgot to mention that we have 125 people working in UITP in these 13 offices. And if we make sure that we better answer the expectations of the members, and we make sure that the well-being of our staff is guaranteed, then we will ensure the financial sustainability of the association. And this is what is driving us. The next slide, please. And we translated this vision into strategic priorities. First one is to develop and diversify our membership, to make sure that we represent the whole ecosystem, to make sure that we represent the whole continents and the diverse local contexts in which public transport is developed, because at the end, public transport is a local service, so it's important that we represent this diversity of local contexts. Advocacy is the second strategic priorities, and especially how to engage more with at local level and at national level. Though we are an international organization, it's important, as I said earlier, because public transport is a local service, it's important that we engage at local level, like I am doing it today, I would say, and to better also perceive the expectations at local level and also at national level, because in many countries, in most of the countries even, the regulation is decided at national level. Regulation about public transport is decided at national level. So this is important. Then diversifying the services that we provide to our members. I mentioned earlier trainings and events and committees and studies, statistics, etc. So this is important to diversify the services and to find a way with this to offer standardized also services to our members to make it easier to navigate within UITP. Knowledge is the very important key element of our strategy, and we have in UITP about 40 committees that cover diversity of topics related to public transport, from funding to marketing to human resource management to metro operation, etc., etc. So, and also we are involved. We lead a number of projects related to develop this knowledge, and I will mention some of them later on. And the fifth one is governance, of course, and management, as in any company or organization. Next slide, please. So just wanted to share with you some issues, some aspects which are related to the context in which public transport is operating now, and context that is impacting public transport, either trends, external trends, or developments which are taking place within the sector. First, ridership. You know, after COVID, ridership is recovering at different paces around the world. Generally speaking, in Europe and in Asia, we are almost, or in some cities, we are even exceeded the ridership, the pre-COVID ridership, I would say. In the Americas, it's still behind that level, of course, related to the context in the different countries, but also related to the fact that people are now working more from home and moving less, or moving maybe commuting 2 days a week, 3 days a week, but not the whole week. And also what we observe globally is that the use of public transport during weekends is growing much faster than during weekdays. And showing, of course, this is the global observation, not necessarily related to some specific cases, but showing also that first, people, I mean, it's not because we had COVID that now people are not back to public transport. They are back to public transport, and they use it during weekends. And also, it shows also that mobility is growing. Even if we only commute 2 or 3 days a week to the office, mobility is growing, and we need to take this into consideration. But there are some challenges. One of them is the labor shortage, and especially we have a number of cities that have reduced their service because they couldn't find drivers to operate buses. So this is one important aspect that we are working on in UITP with our members, also working on how to improve or to strengthen the employer's brand of public transport, how to make public transport more attractive to young people, to women, I mentioned earlier, to people who, because in some cities, unfortunately, it has a negative image, and it doesn't attract spontaneously people to work in this sector. So this is something that we are working on in UITP. Electrification, of course, is part of of the solution to the climate change issue. So electrification is a global trend. It is on all continents. It is developing fast, but you know the demand is so high that the supply chain experience some challenges to provide, you know, to answer to this demand, and this is of course a key challenge. Digitalization is also another important development in public transport, like it is in other sectors, and it is coming with a lot of benefits for the user, for the travelers, of course, for the operation, for the maintenance, and so on. So digitalization is and improving the efficiency of public transport, making public transport more easy to use via these new payment systems, etc. The shared mobility, I mentioned this already, so I will not spend time on that, but shared mobility market continues to grow. Also, we see more and more is that there is a demand management growth in demand management policies, and also more cities deciding to restrict the use of cars in cities. And to develop alternative modes of transport, and of course, including public transport. We see also a trend of development of of ticketing system at national level, making it easier not just to move within the city, but also between cities, and using the same ticketing system integrated at national level. This is a trend that is making public transport also more attractive. We see also a growth in developing rail systems, in developing bus rapid transport systems, or bus with a high level of service. It means mass transport. So there is a number of projects, a lot of projects, and North America, for example, illustrates very well this trend. Also, one challenge that is very important is that the cost of operations, the operating costs are increasing, while the revenues are stagnating. They are stagnating because in some cities, the use of public transport is still lower compared to the pre-COVID period, but also stagnating because we see that in many cities there is a trend to reduce fares or to even provide public transport for free. And of course, what citizens want, they want better quality public transport. When you ask people why they don't use public transport, they will never tell you because they have to pay. They tell you maybe because it's not punctual enough, or it's not available enough, or it's not. But what they want quality public transport. Means we need to invest more in public transport. And if we reduce the fares, we will have less resources to improve the system. So this is a very important aspect also that we are working on. Large events are also an opportunity to develop public transport. We see it more and more. And one last aspect I wanted to mention is that there is increasing needs for capacity building, for training, for improving the capacity of public transport organizations. So now I will move quickly on the next slides. Yes, so this I no need to spend time on that because this is reflecting the context I just explained, and we translated these topics into these 5 priorities: the labor market, the business model of public transport, the decarbonization, the redefinition of public transport by integrating shared mobility, and the digital transformation. And where there is one, let's say, common thread to these 5 priorities, and the transversal one, which is promoting women in public transport and making public transport also serving better women, considering their travel conditions and their expectations. So the next slide. So how we are organized in UITP, the next one. Yeah, this is important, is the governance of UITP. So we have a General Assembly gathering our 1,900 members, meeting once a year and inviting all members to, convening all members to meet. And then this General Assembly has delegated the governance and the finances and the membership related issues to an executive board. This executive board is about 20 members. They represent all regions, all modes in UITP, and this is the board really administrating the association. And then we have, and this executive board is meeting 3 to 4 times a year. It's of course is shared by René Amilcar, and the policy board also shared by the president. This policy board is more focusing on the knowledge part, on the content, let's say, dimension of the association, and approving also our policy papers, our official positions on behalf of the association. So we have the governance, the finances, then the membership relations with the executive board, and the policy and content and the knowledge with the policy board. The policy board meets 2 times a year, and because this policy board is a huge group, so we have smaller group called the Presscom, where the president of all committees, they meet and they prepare the positions for the policy board, and the secretariat, of course, this 120 people working in UITP, supporting the work and providing these positions and drafting the papers, etc., and developing the services to the members. And so with all this meeting and the meeting of the policy board are the meetings that gather the group of public transport leaders, CEOs from at least 80 companies around the world. And this meeting, in general, or traditionally, I would say, it is hosted also by the president of UITP. So I hope, we'll have soon a meeting in Ottawa with our policy board and bringing these leaders from public transport leaders here in Ottawa, because I think it could have having this. We could also ask them even to discuss issues which are of interest for Ottawa, and to share their experience from the perspective of these issues. So this is about our governance. And the next slide, please. Yeah, here, just for information, I suppose you will receive a copy of these slides. You can see the list of people and the companies they represent, and they are all, CEOs of big transport companies like Singapore and Vienna and Dallas and Dubai, etc. The next one, please. Yeah, Brussels as well, Lisbon, Warsaw, Paris, Barcelona, and so on. The next, please. Yeah, this is the list of committees that develop the work of UITP. These committees is where the members meet. So we have about more than 1,000 members sitting in these committees. So it means 1,000 members, individuals, are really supporting the association, developing the work of the association, sharing their expertise, their knowledge to develop this production of knowledge that has been there for more than almost 140 years now. Next slide. So some examples about what we do in the field of advocacy. The next one, please. Of course, by advocacy we mean showing the benefits of public transport, showing what public transport can bring to a city, to the economy, to the society. We do that with international organizations. We are involved in the COP discussions, for example, the climate conference. We are involved with the World Bank, with the United Nations, with other regional also entities to discuss on how we can better develop public transport in the different countries. We organize campaigns as well to promote these public transport benefits. The next one, please. Yeah, this to do that we talk to mayors, we talk to ministers, we talk to policy makers, policy leaders and national governments. The next one, please. And we do that also by building alliances with other sectors, because public transport has an impact on health, and we work with the health professionals, with the health decision makers, with the environment decision makers, with the business sector, of course, with land use and urban planning, which is a very important. The integration with transport is very important, with the tourism sector, because we see that if you look to the most visited cities in the world, they are all have invested in important public transport systems, and it's this public transport that is making the city also pleasant to visit for tourists. So this is one of the aspects. The next one, please. Yeah, here you see all the international organizations we are working on, and other associations, also peer associations like the International Railway Union of Railways, for example, the European Cycling Federation. Work 21 is an association of pedestrians, you know. So it's important that we join forces to better promote and better develop public transport. The next one. Yeah, here is one illustration of a campaign called Public Transport Benefits that was promoted in the metro system in Brussels, for example, in Barcelona as well, in Warsaw, also during COP, the last COP in Dubai. It was in the vehicles that carried the officials to the meetings, etc. Next one. Yeah, we have also foundation Youth for Public Transport, because we believe that it's important first to better know the expectations of the young people, their expectations from public transport, but also very important for us to involve more young people in public transport, because they have the creativity and the right approach to improve and to make this sector better. Next one. Yeah, these are examples of our policy positions, how to build successful cities, the new mobility and urban space, etc. We have papers on funding, etc. So this is about the knowledge. Next one. Some examples. So we are involved in about 20, we call them third-party funded projects funded by international organizations, by a number of, also by our members on different topics like electric buses, autonomous vehicles, safety in public transport, and so on. The next one. Yeah, these are more than 20 projects and different topics they cover. The next one, please. Yeah, these are some publications and the statistics that we develop periodically. The next one. And here are some examples. For example, with COVID, we started to monitor the use of public transport in different cities. We had a sample of 50 cities where we monitored the use of public transport every week in 2021. Now we publish a report every 6 months, not because it's less, I would say, less critical to do that. The next one. And these are some example, a list of publications we have recently developed. Next slide. And we have an electronic library, an online library with 60,000 reports and publications that are reserved to our members, where they can, of course, if they have an issue in their city about, for example, security issue in their city, and they want to know how other cities dealt with that issue, they can find examples in our library. Next one, please. The Academy, this is very important. Next slide. Yeah, these are our training programs. We, every week somewhere in the world, there is a training program of UITP, at least one, I would say. And this program could be on demand, but that the member, they express very clear requests, and we develop it tailor-made to their needs, or we have also open calendar programs, which are open to everyone, be in person or online. Next one. Yeah, you see now, since we developed our training program, 1,000 companies, they have benefited from this program in 58 different countries. We covered 60 topics, and we have 300 trainers. And the logos you see at the bottom of the page are the logos of our members hosting regional training programs in Africa, in North America, in Asia, in Latin America. So these are the members who are hosting regional training programs of UITP. The next one, please. Yeah, then we can move to the next one. And in addition to training, we also offer the possibility to have peer review. Means these are experts, professionals, talking to other professionals. A city has a problem and they want to know how in other cities they solve it. So we can have a group of experts coming from that cities and advising the host city. So this is a very successful service because it's not done with consultants. It's really peer-to-peer, professionals to professionals. Next one, and the next. So the networking part is offered in events. We have our Global Public Transport Summit. It's an event we organize since 1886, you know, and the last edition was in Barcelona last year, and the next one will be in Hamburg in Germany next year, and we have a big exhibition, international conferences, workshops, seminars, so a number of opportunities where the members can meet and share their experience and their knowledge. Next one, please. Yeah, these are some figures from the last event in Barcelona. It's a very big exhibition with there was 35 different buses exhibited in that event. So with the latest technologies, so very big event organized in Barcelona. And the next one, and this is my last slide. Is the next summit will take place in Hamburg. In 2025. So I try to cover a variety of issues, not easy to cover everything. So I hope it gave you a better idea on what UITP can do, but also how UITP can support the city of Ottawa and can make Ottawa benefit more from the association. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup pour votre attention et pour le temps que vous m'avez accordé. Merci.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Merci pour votre présentation.
Well, thank you for your presentation. There's a few questions. Councillor Brockington.
Secretary General, coming back to Ottawa, you said it's been 30 years. Welcome back. I hope you noticed some changes since your last visit. Thank you for your presentation. You mentioned that there were cities or jurisdictions that have ridership well above their levels prior to COVID. Can you mention one or two? What are the reasons for these cities? Do they have a culture where people are back to work physically in an office? Is that the contributing factor, or what are the factors contributing to the higher passenger numbers?
Thank you. So the first city that comes to my mind is Barcelona. And generally speaking, in Spain, it's one country where the ridership of public transport is back. I was about to say to normal. First, tourism could be one element, an important element for the recovery. Means that these touristic cities they have recovered their activities, and they have recovered also the visitors that they used to have. Second is the fact that cities where also the leisure part or the leisure activities or shopping also activities are very important. It means that it compensated the reduction in commuting to work. So these cities have grown in an important way, and also there are in some cities or counties where this work from home is not not very popular, I would say, or not very, frequent. If I take France, for example, a country like France, in France, people, they don't like very much working from home. So they want this social connections, I would say, and in the office, and so they came back, I would say, maybe faster than in other to the office faster than in other countries. So this is what I wanted to say. And also maybe one element important, that we don't see a reduction in the investment in public transport because ridership is not back. So generally speaking, and this is that cities are investing in public transport because we consider that even if they are going less to the office, the people are moving more. So the mobility market is growing. And so it's important that public transport is there to provide this alternative to the car.
That's a great segue, because my second question is to talk about, first of all, I was very happy to hear that your organization is not just public transit, but you were talking about like all mobility partners. So who is integrating that well? What cities are integrating public transit and, you said taxi, or private share companies, pedestrian groups? Who is doing that really well?
Thank you for this question. I think the cities who are integrating well this all services are the cities who have an umbrella authority that is managing or administering the different modes. If I take city like London, for example, with Transport for London, TfL, which is in charge not only of public transport, but in charge also of road management, of road traffic, of cycling. If I take also, it means that it's easier to decide also to dedicate part of the road to buses, to bikes. Also, it's easier in this kind of cities to integrate, to have an integrated ticketing system or integrating payment system for bikes and for park and ride and for public transport and so on. So it's important to have this, not necessarily an authority so integrated like in London, but to have an approach which is putting around the table the different players and trying to look to the problem from the perspective of the traveler, of the citizen, and not just from the perspective of each company taken separately.
Great, thank you. Again, thank you for coming to Ottawa. Thank you for your presentation. And I would just close by asking you to please consider Ottawa as a future site for an international conference. I'm sure we would love to host you here and show off the good things that's happening in Canada. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Kavanagh.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for your presentation. It's good to hear what's going on across the world on public transportation. I'm wondering if there's any examples similar to Ottawa. One of the things we're always told is how big Ottawa is geographically, and therefore that is why it's more complicated for public transit. And European cities are more compact. Maybe there's American examples like us, but it makes it more difficult for us to concentrate our public transit. That's what we're told. Anyway, I just wondered if you have any examples and encouragement for us of going forward.
Thank you. Indeed, the structure of the city, the size of the city has an impact on how people move, certainly, and also the structure of the road network. It has an impact. So I would like to mention the case of Dubai, because Dubai is still, but it changed a little bit. But Dubai was designed as a city for cars with large avenues, with also really not without dedicated lanes for buses and so on. But they decided, it was about 15 years ago, they realized that if they continue growing the same way, the city will collapse because mobility was at that time based almost exclusively on cars. And what they decided, they said, okay, then we need to provide public transport. If we want to rely more on cars, we need to invest in public transport. And so they started developing now in Dubai, there is 75 kilometers of metro. There are bus rapid transit, dedicated lanes for buses. They also they have also an integrated authority with the same, similar to what exists in London. They integrated also the fare system between the different modes, the different operators. They introduced park and ride. They introduced also local, let's say, local shuttles in different neighborhoods which are feeding the main transport corridors, public transport corridors. So, and now, of course, there's still congestion or still traffic problems in Dubai. But the use of public transport is so successful that I cannot imagine how Dubai would look like if there was no public transport now in Dubai. So my answer is, it's important to anticipate. And that if we want people to change their behavior, we need to, in French we say, il faut un choc de l'offre, means that we need to multiply the supply, to really provide public transport. And in all cities that have decided to develop public transport, at the end, people use it. When you develop it, when you offer it, people will use it. But it's important that if we do it with high frequency, we do it with high quality, providing public transport and making it only with a very low frequency will not make people change their habits of using their cars. So yes, I don't know if I answered the question. I understand the concern you have. I fully understand that concern. It's not easy, but it's important that we give an alternative to people if we want to change things.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. I think we just need to see other examples and be encouraged. I have another question. It may not fit, but in terms of getting from city to city, having high-speed rail, is that something that you're also working on looking at? It's beyond the cities. But I find it really important that we also connect between cities.
I should have mentioned that UITP doesn't cover transport between cities. UITP is an association of local, suburban, regional transport. But I agree with you, high-speed rail is key. And though we don't cover high-speed rail, we realize that in some regions or in some cities, there are people commuting to work every day using high-speed rail. If I take people between Lille and Brussels, for example, between Belgium and France. In Japan, people are commuting using high-speed rail. And so high-speed rail could be also considered in some ways, you know, a kind of local public transport because it is a way to commute to work. But I must say, we are not, in UITP, we are not expert in high-speed rail, so we don't really work on this topic.
Fair enough. I realized it was just outside your scope, but I just wondered if it's being discussed. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Councillor Leeper.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. It is useful to know more about l'Union. So I am wondering, do you track the financial results in depth from at least your member agencies, if not others?
Sorry, do we track what? Sorry.
Financial results.
Oh. I mean, financial results of public transport operation.
Yeah, so every year we put out a budget and you know, it's public, but it's difficult to collate all the information about how transit agencies are doing vis-a-vis each other with respect to their financial performance. And I'm just wondering if you have access to that data or if you are collating that data.
Indeed, we have access to that data of some companies, and what we try to track is the coverage ratio of farebox revenues by coverage of operating cost by farebox revenues. This is something we try to follow, and we have it. I mean, if the sample of cities we have is like, it varies from 30% to 100%. So it means we have cities where the farebox revenues cover 30% of the operating costs, and other cities where it covers close to 100%. If I take Hong Kong, is 100%. If I take a city like Brussels, is about 50%. If I take London, is about 80 to 90%. And in some medium-sized cities, it's more closer to 30%, I would say. So that's, and it depends on the type of modes you operate. It depends on of the fare, the pricing you apply, if there is integration or not between the different modes. So it depends on different parameters indeed.
Okay. That's useful to know. I mean, there are a variety of other important metrics within financial results that I think people are interested in taking a look at as well. Debt costs, operating costs, to do cross-jurisdictional comparisons. And I'm just wondering how in-depth your researchers have that information collated.
It's a very important parameter indeed, because the way we calculate, we estimate the operating cost sometimes is not the same from one city to the other or one country. Sometimes we include amortization, for example, depreciation. Some cities we include it in the operating cost. In other cities we don't include it at all. I think the last study we have carried out in this field is maybe in it was before COVID. I don't think we have something very recent. And we highlighted these differences in methodologies between the different cities. So we can share with you this if you.
Yeah, and that was my other question is what is elected officials within your member organizations' access to that data? Is it through our transit agency, or do elected officials with member jurisdictions have direct access to you?
No, through the transit agency.
Through the agency,
we can provide them, and depends on how the study was developed, because it could be that the members who have contributed, if it's a benchmarking group, then the information is anonymized before it is shared, because some cities they don't want this to be shared with others. But in general, also each time there is a study like that done, we try to publish something, to publish a summary, even if it's not detailed, at least the lessons learned from that exercise. So, but yeah, through the transit agency, member of UITP, we can provide you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to ask about one topic that you raised, which is around the electrification and supply chain. We're just at the beginning of our journey to convert our diesel fleet into an electric fleet, and I think there are some concerns about supply chain, about the effect that might have on costs and finances going forward. Do you have any? Can you share some more comments on what some of the solutions may be globally? How big of a concern is supply chain, and any other challenges around electrification?
I think our cities, I would say, or our governments have put targets for decarbonization, which are too strict, I would say, for public transport, because from where public transport is coming. I don't know the situation here, but for example, in Europe, there are clear targets about by 2025, we have to reach 35%, I think, of the fleet, of public transport fleet should be zero emission, and then by 2030, there is a like 75 or 2035, we even for cars, is not possible anymore. It won't be possible anymore to have any gasoline or diesel cars. And it was done without checking if we have the resources and the capacity to manufacture these vehicles, to produce them. And so who are benefiting from that? Those industries that have developed the electric vehicles, earlier than others. So currently is the Chinese manufacturers, of course, they are leading the show. 90% of the electric buses are built in China now. 90% of the whole for the whole world, and also why? How to express it? Actually, we have put the focus on decarbonizing the buses, but without considering the decarbonization of the whole of the mobility system as a whole. Because when we talk about decarbonization, there are three pillars. There is we call it the avoid, shift, improve. First, we need to try to avoid to move if it's possible, not to move, then we can save, we can decarbonize by avoiding to move. Then if we cannot avoid to move, we shift to the modes which are less emitting. And then if we cannot shift, it's important that we make sure if we use our car, then make sure it's a clean car. And here we have imposed to buses to be clean, but we didn't think about maybe it's easier to try to move people from cars to buses, because the bus in itself, when you compare a gasoline car and the diesel bus, or a diesel car and the bus emits 3 to 4 times less CO2 emissions per passenger than a car. So simply by moving people from cars to buses, we already reduce the CO2 emissions. Not to forget that we have tramways and light rails and trains and metros, that are zero emission. If I take a city like Vienna, 80% of public transport is already zero emission. 80% of all of the mobility in public transport is already zero emission. So we have put the pressure on decarbonizing buses, but actually decarbonization could be reached differently by trying to improve public transport in general and trying to move people from cars to public transport, and all, of course, cycling and walking and shared mobility, etc., etc. So that's why we created this tension on the supply chain, because we are only approaching decarbonization from one perspective and not considering the scope of possibilities we have to decarbonize.
Okay, thank you. I see Councillor Lowe has a question.
Not so much a question, but a comment. Hi from Hong Kong, by the way, and 12,000 kilometers away.
Councillor Lowe, we are having trouble hearing you. Do you have any way to increase your volume?
Can you hear me?
It's a little bit better. Try it again.
Can you hear me now?
Okay. Go ahead, we'll try. It's a little bit louder now.
Okay, I got a thumbs up from Councillor Curry there, so it's I guess you could hear me. I just want to say hi from Hong Kong, 12,000 kilometers away, and something I want to highlight that is a little bit unique here is a lot of the metro stations, when they build the metro stations, they also develop all the land above it. So this sort of ties into our whole discussion around housing and bringing housing to transit as well as bringing transit to people. But I'm very glad to sort of hear these perspectives from different places around the world. And I'm sorry I missed most of the presentation, but last thing I want to congratulate Renee on her presidency of the UITP as well. So just a very quick comment from 12,000 kilometers away. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lowe. I'm glad you could join us today. I'm not seeing any other questions, so I want to thank Mr. Mizgani again. I know you've got a busy day today. I see Marco D'Angelo is here as well, president of the Canadian Urban Transit Association, very closely aligned to the work that UITP does. I think it's a really important conversation to have. Often at Transit Commission, we really get into the what, into the how long does it take for a bus to get from A to B, or how are the axles working today on the train. But I think what the UITP is focused on is that why. Why are we doing this? It's about mobility, it's about the economy, it's about access to jobs, access to housing, it's about climate. And it's a much broader focus that we need to have when we're talking about transit here in our city. So thank you for your presentation today, and looking forward to talking more with you later on.
Thank you very much for having me, and I hope the information I shared is useful or informative. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup pour votre accueil.
Thank you very much for having us here today. Thank you.
Okay, well, we will continue in our meeting. Our next part of the meeting is our regular update, our OC Transpo update for rail, bus, and TRANSPO. So we'll just give staff a chance to get into place for that, and we'll move ahead. We'll start with the staff presentation, and then we have 3 speakers registered, and then questions from committee members and councillors. René, bienvenue à vous et votre équipe.
René, welcome to you and your team this morning. Lots of topics to talk about this morning, so over to you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Hello, everyone. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the Secretary General for having come to Ottawa. It's a great pleasure. It's important for me for Ottawa to be more high profile. I'm very, very proud of Ottawa, so I'm very happy to have him with us today.
For the first Transit Commission meeting of 2024. We have a very exciting year ahead, but I wanted to speak briefly about the adjustment to our workforce that was announced earlier this week. Our people are our greatest asset, and I know that Tuesday's announcement had a profound impact, not just on affected employees and their families, but on our entire department. Every effort was made to focus on vacant and temporary positions in order to minimize the impact to individuals. At the same time, this change was essential to align our administrative and supervisory resources with our department's needs and our ridership levels. We continue to work with transit union leaders and are committed to supporting all our staff through this process with the goal of ensuring the long-term stability of Ottawa's transit system. Next slide, please. In December, we held a joint Transit Commission and Light Rail Subcommittee meeting, and we provided an update on the return to double-car train service on O-Train Line 1. This is due to a new measure that extends the life of the wheel hub assemblies on the vehicles. The two-car trains offer additional capacity to accommodate our customers. To ensure safety and gather additional data, we continue to run test trains during regular service hours. This testing will allow for early detection of potential issues. We will continue to share updates on the work to improve train reliability. I'm pleased to say that we have also seen some early success with the implementation of our enhanced winter operations plans. We continue to work with RTM to maintain service on Line 1 during winter storms. This includes measures like applying the icing solution to the overhead catenary wires, installing carbon strips on trains to scrap ice from the wires as they pass by, and running trains overnight to help keep the tracks clear of snow. The team is working hard to implement our winter operations plan for bus and rail and will apply lessons learned in the preparations for next winter. TRANSPO is also steadily improving the real-time data that we deliver to customers, including real-time predictions that can start up to 30 minutes before a trip begins. We look forward to further improvements in real-time data later this year through the adoption of industry-leading standards that will expand trip planning options for our customers. Next slide, please. The photo you see on this slide is one of the new shelters installed at Tunis Pasteur Station last week. These 14 shelters were added in response to valuable feedback from customers and commissioners on the need for better weather and shade protection. We are also in the process of adding 9 new shelters at Erdman Station. That work is expected to be completed next week, and we will continue to explore more permanent solutions in the future. Next slide, please. I want to take a moment to highlight a wonderful para-TRANSPO operator who recently celebrated her retirement after a long-standing career with us. Trish Sear started as a para-TRANSPO operator in 1979 and has seen many changes in transit service over the years. I was very honored to be able to visit her at Maryville Garage, where she works, to celebrate her 45 years of service. Please join me in sending congratulations to Trish and well wishes for a happy retirement. My team and I will now provide an update on several ongoing initiatives. First, I will pass the floor to Sue Jones from the Infrastructure and Water Services Department to provide a brief update on the work on the way at the Saint-Laurent Station Tunnel. Olivia Meguenti will then provide an update on our recruitment program, followed by a presentation of the latest key performance indicators. Finally, we have an update on our bus maintenance action plan. Next slide, please. Over to you, Sue.
Thank you. On January 2nd, we were notified that pieces of concrete debris were discovered at the Saint-Laurent station along the tracks. A service was paused to allow investigation. Infrastructure and Water Services is responsible for these structures. They were built in 1987 as part of the original transitway. City staff attended the station. We also engaged a structural engineering firm and had access to a contractor. On January 2nd, inspection work by the contractor was completed to identify and remove small pieces of concrete that had separated from the main surface of the structure. Once the work was complete, the structural engineer deemed that there were no overhead hazards and it was safe to resume train service. While I'm very disappointed that we had a service interruption, it is not unusual for a structure of this age to have localized failure on the surface. We will continue to conduct our routine inspections in collaboration with OC TRANSPO. I will now pass the slide to Olivia McGinty.
Thank you, Sue. Good morning, everyone. So today, my goal is to provide you with an update on our 2024 recruitment and training plan. Comme j'ai mentionné à la fin de l'année passée,
As I said at the end of last year, I'm back to share our recruitment plan for 2024 and to give you information on the way we have set our targets for this year.
First, a quick retrospective on what occurred last year. As you can see, in terms of bus operator recruits, we hired 376 trainees. 70% of them, or 264 in total, graduated and became bus operators. We also filled a number of other critical positions, including 26 TRANSPO operators, 26 maintenance positions, which include apprentices and building service attendants, 30 customer service representatives, 37 electric rail operators, and 6 diesel rail operators. Nous avons une cinquantaine de plus qui sont prêts à commencer.
There are about 50 others who are about to start their training, who have already started their training in some cases. We've adjusted our timing so that it aligns with the opening of line 2.
Regarding our retention rates, before you is a snapshot of the voluntary resignations we've seen over the last several years. With the obvious anomalies brought on by the pandemic, we can see that some new operators do in fact leave in their first 2 years of service. But the numbers have remained fairly consistent over time, with some very modest increases in that tenure group. It's important to note that these modest increases are, to a certain extent, explainable. If you think about the post-pandemic job market and the unique advantages job seekers currently have, it's not entirely surprising that some choose to job hop. This is a reality that many employers are facing these days that we are not immune to, but notwithstanding this reality, we don't see any concerning trends or spikes. We also looked at retirements, and although there are some cases where those eligible to retire are working a little bit longer, what we're seeing is most who are eligible to retire do. So nothing really noteworthy or concerning on this front. Next slide, please. So, what did 2023 teach us about 2024? We need to take the time to forecast our needs and connect all the dots together. I've said this before, we are a big organization with many moving parts, all of which have profound impacts on the makeup of our workforce. So with that, in late 2023, we had detailed discussions about our anticipated staffing requirements, and we took the time to map out all the draws from our bus operator talent pool. This includes retirements, resignations, promotions, temporary positions, and of course some additional hiring required to meet our 99.5% service objectives. Next slide. So in the end, and with the important data we've collected over the last couple of years around training dropout and failure rates, we've determined that we need to hire 450 bus operator trainees this year in order to obtain 330 graduates. This is the goal that we've set for ourselves this year, and we are committed to attaining it. Next slide, please. So this here is a visual representation of our yearly plan. It's an ambitious one with 30 trainees starting nearly every 3 weeks, but this is how we plan to achieve our goal of hiring 450 operator trainees. Our plan is to update this slide on a regular basis to keep you all up to speed on our progress. Next slide, please. So before I pass the mic over, I wanted to close off by providing you with the details on the type of information we share with those interested in pursuing a career as a bus operator. We do our very best to ensure everyone thinking of applying is informed and knows what is expected of them if they are in the end successful. And of course, by design, we have a multi-phase screening process that helps us determine whether or not applicants have what it takes to be a successful bus operator. So with that, this slide provides a breakdown of some of the things we do to ensure we find the right candidates. So first, our job postings online contain valuable information about the requirements of the role, from what kind of candidate we're looking for, what skills are beneficial to the role, and what one can expect in terms of salary and work schedule. Our website octranspo.com/jobs showcases testimonials from current operators and day in the life of information. Our pre-hire assessments gauge suitability for the bus operator role and outline expectations. There's a judgment and suitability component, a customer service and written component, as well as a driving component, which emphasizes the critical importance of safe driving practices. But in the spirit of continuous improvement, we have recently added additional work scheduling information to our frequently asked questions document, which is provided to every candidate at our in-person customer service testing events. And our recruitment team now spends additional time speaking with candidates about work schedules and expectations at the onset of every session as well. But all in all, although we do get candidates who have a change of heart at various stages of the process, we continue to get eager candidates with professional backgrounds suitable for the role, who go on to having successful and long careers as bus operators. That's all for me this morning. Thank you for your time. I'll now hand it over to Paul. Thank you.
Merci. Bonjour, je suis Paul.
Hello, I'm Paul Trubita.
Chef de la sécurité.
I'm head of safety. Today I'll be talking to you about injuries, employee injuries, customer injuries, and vehicle collision rates as well.
November 2023, there have been 772 employee injuries at OC TRANSPO. For the month of November alone, there were 73 new injuries. This is slightly higher than the monthly average of 70 injuries per month in 2023 year to date. The top three types of injuries are struck or caught by an object, assault, or a traumatic or stressful event. The customer injuries to date are lower in November at 1.17 injuries per 1 million trips. So that's down from 1.23 in the month of October. However, we do continue to see that hard braking events on buses are the main reason for injuries requiring medical attention for our customers. And this supports what we're seeing in the next table on vehicle collisions. We've observed that both the total vehicle collision rate of 2.42 vehicle collisions per 100,000 kilometers and the preventable collision rate of 1.12 collisions per 100,000 kilometers traveled still exceed our safety management targets. Also, we've observed that red light and speeding infractions continue to be on the rise. So we continue to rely on our one-day mandatory driver refresher training for all OC TRANSPO employees who are authorized to operate an OC TRANSPO vehicle as part of their job duties, and we also rely on our ongoing monthly safety observation campaigns that are focused on the Highway Traffic Act and distracted driving in an attempt to reduce the number of collisions. The bar graph on the bottom left there shows the number of operators that have completed the one-day refresher training. As of the end of November, that total is 740. And so now I'd like to pass the microphone to my colleague, Pat Scrimger.
Merci, Paul. I'll take you through some of the key performance indicators now. The first is on-time performance for Paer TRANSPO service, which in December was at 93%, very consistent, though not exactly the same with where it has been the full length of 2023. The next slide, please. This is the wait time when people called on the phone line to make a Paer TRANSPO booking, averaging in December at just under 4.5 minutes, very similar to where it's been through all of 2023. Next slide, please. These are the number of bookings made on Paer TRANSPO in black, the number that were made by telephone, in orange, the number that were made online. And we continue to encourage customers to reduce their need to wait online and reduce the need for others to wait online by moving over to the online booking system. The next slide, please. These are the number of complaints from Paer TRANSPO customers and the composition of what those complaints were concerning. And you can see on the right, December lower than it was through most of the fall, with a very similar breakdown between service delivery, booking, and other concerns. Next slide, please. And two more on Paer TRANSPO. This is ridership on Paer TRANSPO through the full year of 2023, ending the year at 754,000 customer trips made. And as you can see, we're, for the year, well above budget and almost back up to pre-pandemic ridership levels. The next slide, please. I think finally for Paer TRANSPO, fare revenue collected amounted to $2.2 million, more than was budgeted, but with the extra fare revenue that came in contributing to some of the extra costs that were incurred to carry those additional customers. Moving on from Paer TRANSPO to O-Train service. This is the service delivery for O-Train Line 1 with you'll remember, a dip in January and in April as we suffered from freezing rain, a gap in late July and early August when the line was closed for work with the axle bearings, and then a very strong recovery for the rest of the year. December at 99.6% of planned service delivered, and for the full year, excluding that period of shutdown, 97.1% of service delivered. The next slide shows the same for bus service, where the year averaged 97.8% of service delivered. December very much in line with that at 97.7% of planned service delivered. The next slide shows the breakdown of what that 2.3% of service that was not delivered was made up of in December, with half of that being from on-street service adjustments, just over a third being from insufficient number of operators, which you've heard earlier how we're working to resolve that problem with the recruitment, and then the rest being bus related, either buses that didn't get out of the garage or buses that broke down on the street. These are things you'll hear about later in the maintenance update. The next slide is a new slide showing absenteeism among two of the major employee groups. Absenteeism among bus operators, which gradually trended down during the year, and absenteeism for rail operators, which increased a little bit through the year, and that one spike you see in August was related to the closure of the line, just as people moved back and forth between operating buses and trains. The next, and for the year, just there's some averages on there for the year, 14% and 12%. Now moving to on-time performance of bus service. This is on-time performance, which graph you've seen before for the less frequent bus routes, generally around 75%, and ending the year in December at 74% for the month. This, just to explain, this is the percentage of buses that arrive no more than 1 minute ahead of the published time, no more than 5 minutes after the published time. And it's measured at every major stop on the entire system. The next slide is a sort of an interim measure of where we are on the more frequent bus routes. These are the routes that run every 15 minutes or more frequently. So using that same measure of no more than 1 minute early, no more than 5 minutes late, you can see that on-time performance is lower than it is for the less frequent routes, principally because these are the routes that run on the major streets, which have more traffic congestion, but also because we take a different approach to managing these routes when they're very frequent, that regularity and even spacing of service along the route can be more important to customers than making sure that each individual trip is on time. So we're continuing to look at best practices from all over the world through UITP and organizations like UIDP to find out what is the best way for us to measure internally and to report to you on the reliability, both punctuality and regularity of more frequent bus services. The next slide shows ridership, and you can see that in December we carried 5.8 million customers. For the year, we totaled 64.2 million customers, which was 66% of the pre-pandemic level. We started the year below that average at that 66%. We finished the year above that, and the full year is 66%. As we go into 2024, we hope to just build on that, build further on that. I'd also like to, there's one sub-point that's in the top right, is that for the full year, O-Train ridership was at 50% of pre-pandemic levels, and bus service was at 70% of pre-pandemic levels. The next slide shows fare revenue with $12.1 million coming in December, and a total of $136.8 million for the full year 2023. And that, I believe, is my last slide, and I will now turn you over to my colleague, Joel Lemia.
Merci Pat, et bonjour membres de la comité. There are many factors that can impact bus service reliability, from traffic congestion to running time to bus and operator availability. Another factor that we would like to bring forward to Transit Commission today is the impact that we are seeing from the federally legislated Canada Labour Code 30-minute breaks for bus operators that were introduced into our operations in April 2022. Following a review of a recently issued Employment and Social Development Canada Interpretations, Policies and Guidelines document on the subject of 30-minute CLC break legislation, OC TRANSPO ended the practice of allowing bus operators the option to be paid out in lieu of taking their breaks while working on street. Bus operators must now take their 30-minute break. As a result of this additional pressure on service, actions have been taken to reduce the impact on our customers and staff, which include the daily auditing of trip cancellations due to CLC breaks and escalating ongoing issues for fixes such as adjustments to start and end times, investigating and addressing performance issues, and enhanced data gathering to gain better metrics on how, where, and why trip cancellations are occurring due to CLC breaks. These data will inform scheduling improvements to reduce trip cancellations. Staff continue to monitor route performance data to ensure that running times are realistic. This has resulted in improvements being made to 75 of OC TRANSPO's 131 bus routes over the past year. Next slide. Over the long term, staff will continue the comprehensive review of running time and scheduling practices. This work has been ongoing and will be restructured into a formal work plan with regular reporting to the departmental leadership team. It will be a root cause analysis of problematic routes to evaluate the feasibility of all possible mitigation measures, which could include runtime adjustments, changes to scheduling practices, and the implementation of new transit priority measures. This ongoing cross-departmental project will include significant inputs from all groups within transit services, as well as our city partners. That's it for me. À vous, René.
Merci beaucoup, Joel. As you have heard me say many times now, the route review, recruitment, and bus maintenance action plan are key components to ensuring that we achieve our goal of 99.5% delivery. If one of these elements is out of balance, then we cannot be successful in achieving this goal. As our work continues, we will provide updates on each component of the 99.5 wheel to Transit Commission. For today, we will focus on our bus maintenance action plan. We know the current level of bus trips not delivered due to maintenance issues has a serious impact on our customers' daily trips. We have a strong action plan to address this in the short and long term. I will now invite Rami El Figali to share an update on OC TRANSPO's plan to meet fleet maintenance goals through our bus action maintenance. Rami?
Merci, René. Good morning. Bonjour. My name is Rami Al-Fagali. I am the Associate Director for Transit Bus Operations and Maintenance, and I'm here today to provide you an update on our bus maintenance action plan. Last year, in September, we spoke to the backlog of preventative maintenance that impacted our bus availability. At the end of Q3, we held a 2-week overtime campaign in the garages to clear out the backlog of bus maintenance that had built up during the 4-week LRT shutdown on July 17. We launched a similar campaign again at the end of October into November, targeting weekends to reduce the number of non-available buses. We initiated a morale working group with ATU 279 union executives to address employee concerns, which we have continued into 2024. En 2024, nous travaillons avec les représentants syndicaux pour proposer un
We're
projet.
working with union reps to propose pilot projects and improve the model of service in the garage. We have staff that are more experienced during the night shifts.
Also include options for shift premiums and condensed work weeks. Next slide, please. Our fleet is aging, and so we are seeing an increase in the number of defects as a result. In Q3, we conducted an exercise to measure our resource plans against actual workload and adjusted our planning to best maximize our efficiency and establish an effective daily and long-term continuous maintenance plan. We improved our focus on a dedicated centralized hoist plan throughout our garages to increase our repair capacity and efficiency. We continue to work with our safety team to better understand and develop solutions to reduce the number of on-street collisions, as mentioned earlier by my colleague Paul. With our partners in City Supply, we have begun exploring increasing our external service maintenance contracts on specific vehicle repair types to maximize repair capacity and clear backlogs. In Q1 2024, we are committed to gaining a better understanding of our collision rate and are progressing forward on our external maintenance contract plans. Next slide, please. We are undergoing a major review of our mechanic training program to introduce more skill set training and ensure we produce an optimal learning environment for our apprentices. To enhance the training program for our apprentices and mechanics, we established a dedicated program managed by our training and development team. Our goal is to provide staff with the tools required to be successful in this role. We signed a memorandum of understanding with the union to retain the successful apprentices after their graduation. This work is ongoing in 2024 and is helping us expand the number of apprentices that we can onboard. The labor market for skilled truck and coach mechanics has become increasingly competitive. This is not unique to Ottawa. In fact, many transit agencies in Canada are experiencing similar pressures. For the recruitment of mechanics, we have begun developing a succession plan to address our upcoming retirement within the organization. We are looking to partner with local trade schools, Skilled Trades Ontario, and collaborate with headhunters as the industry continues to experience a shortage of truck, coach, and bus mechanics. We will be benchmarking our progress against other transit agencies, and we continue to meet and work with staff to improve morale and the overall mechanics experience at OC TRANSPO. For 2024, we are expanding our recruitment efforts and hope to leverage the pilot projects mentioned earlier as a potential hiring incentive. We'll also be working with the union leaders to explore recruiting garage supervisors externally. Next slide, please. In Q4 2023, we began our search for a new external bus maintenance manager and worked to backfill the vacant program manager positions within the department. In the coming weeks, we'll be onboarding a new manager of fleet maintenance, and we are also introducing a manager for strategic maintenance planning, which is a newly created role designed to oversee the development and implementation of the new maintenance planning and quality control program. With regards to technology, we have begun to seek out opportunities and software upgrades to make our systems more efficient and accurate, and able to support the electric buses program and charging infrastructure. We have worked with City IT Services to identify a recommended solution. In 2024, we will begin implementing upgrades on our fleet maintenance software, M5, and begin the lifecycle process on our existing yard management system. Next slide, please. In September, we increased the engineering team's involvement in on-floor support to produce more effective preventative maintenance plans. I will now hand it over to my colleague, Richard Holder, Director of Engineering Services, who will talk further about what his team is doing in the garages to support this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Rami. L'équipe technique des bus
The
travaille
technical team works in close cooperation with the maintenance team to improve the reliability of buses.
takes is anchored in the aim to increase the mean distance between failures of our buses. The longer that we can have our buses on the road without any failures, the better service we provide. So we have been reviewing the maintenance plans that we have in place to ensure that we're in a position to accurately identify the mean distance between failures and increase that number for each of the fleets. We're also looking at all the factors that cause a bus to go out of service when it's on a route, and we have been developing action plans to respond to those issues. We investigate issues related to reliability and work with our teams and the maintenance teams to develop service bulletins and campaigns to adequately mitigate those issues. And we track KPIs on a monthly basis and report that to our DLT. So that's work that we've been undertaking over the last several months. In terms of the work that we have planned for this quarter, we are looking at increasing the number of people that we have within our engineering support team to make sure that we adequately cover all our fleets and all the shifts that are available at our depots. We are working collaboratively with our industry partners, such as STM, to share our experiences. There are many operators around Canada that are going through the same electrical transition journey as ourselves. As we wait for our electric buses to come online, there is an increasing need to maintain our older diesel fleets. And we get a lot of useful information from agencies such as STM in Montreal. We will continue to develop maintenance programs as preparedness for summer and winter practices. And an example of that is for this winter, we developed some special practices for operators to work through potential failures of bus ramps so that we could actually deal with these issues en route rather than having to bring those buses back to the yard. We continue to propose and follow engineering campaigns to reduce repeat issues, and we will continue to track the KPIs on a monthly basis. And with that, I'll hand it over to Ken Gordon.
Thank you. Good morning. 310T mechanics are in high demand, and OC TRANSPO has to compete with other organizations to bring interested candidates into the city. Most 310T certified mechanics have knowledge on trucks, as a majority of garages are set up to service this type of vehicle. Even though a candidate may have a 310T license, there are still significant differences and added complexities to work on buses. And the technical training team and our current group of professional mechanics work hard to ensure that new apprentices learn what it takes to become an OC TRANSPO mechanic. OC TRANSPO has worked hard to expand the apprenticeship program. We currently have 29 employed with a plan to hire up to an additional 36 in 2024. This program allows OC TRANSPO to hire mechanics that have 310S licenses, which is the license you need to work on small vehicles, and train them to become 310T mechanics. Before the apprenticeship program training begins, each trainee undergoes 111 days of onboarding training, which will be covered in greater detail on the next slide. The 111 days is in combination of on-the-job and in-class training. Once complete, the trainee is registered as a 310T apprentice with the Ministry of Training, colleges, and universities. The process to receive certification is lengthy, normally lasting 3.5 to 4 years. Throughout that time, the apprentice will go through 3 different levels of on-the-job and in-school training before they can challenge the Certificate of Qualification exam. OC TRANSPO pays to have the employee attend the school at each level and will support the apprentice throughout the program. On average, each trainee will require 6,000 hours of on-the-job training and 720 hours of in-school training. The 6,000 hours of OJT is overseen by a certified mechanic and a program sponsor. And at each level, the apprentice must challenge a test to move forward to the next. Next slide, please. Before training begins, it all starts with our recruitment team and the great job they do to bring people into our organization. Once they are hired, they start the apprentice onboarding training, which consists of 51 days of in-class and 60 days of OJT on the garage floor for a total of 111 days. It is a blend of theoretical and tactile learning, adhering to the adult learning principles. It is also a transfer of knowledge from experienced mechanics through scheduled and organized job shadowing and on-the-job training. The first step sees trainees undergo 16 days of training to obtain a CZ class license. Our instructor team will give trainees the skills they need to safely operate a transit bus, and they will upgrade their license, normally from a G class. The second step is 5 days of safety training. This will cover topics such as WMIS, garage orientation, etc. The third step is 15 days of technical training. This is where the trainee gets their first look at what it's like to be a mechanic for OC TRANSPO. Some examples of topics include hoist usage, fuel handling, boosting, and air systems. Step 4, the trainee moves on to job shadowing for 40 days with a fully licensed 310T mechanic. Here, they will start to perform the basic duties under the watchful eye of a trained mentor mechanic. Step 5, the employee will book work at a specific garage. Based on the employee's work location, they will then receive tailored training for the type of bus that they will be working on. This is covered in 15 days of in-class job-specific training, followed by 20 days of on-the-job training with a mentor mechanic. And each time the trainee changes garages, they will go through the job-specific training again if required. I'll now turn the floor back to Renee.
Merci, Ken. Je vais prendre quand même quelques temps, un petit peu de temps.
I'll take a few minutes now just to talk to you about the fact that I'm quite aware that the delivery of the bus this year and even last year, was not, the service delivery was not up to par. And I've been here for 2 years now. I must say that I spent a lot of my energies on the train for obvious reasons, but we knew that we had to work on the staff the lack of staff, and I spent the majority of my time now on the buses, which is my area of expertise. So I can't lie to you by saying that the work to be done is huge. There's so much to do. That's why we took a lot of time this morning to present the action plan that Rami shared with you. It's a very ambitious plan, but I can assure you that it is very complete. It will take some time. It can't be done overnight. It will require patience also. So it is important for me today to share that with you. We're at the beginning of the year. I think it's the right time to do so. And we try to provide the best service possible. But once again, it's not the level that we would like to reach, which is 99.5. 100% is not possible, but 99.5 is possible. We did reach it in the last week of the year and the first week of this year. So it is possible. And the work to be done, once again, is huge. All departments are involved, be it the security, engineering, planning, everyone is engaged so that we focus on the bus maintenance and that we can deliver the buses. When I arrived here, everybody was focusing on the train. It was normal because it was stopped and it was all new, but OC Transpo, it's train, bus, and para-transpo. Those three systems must be efficient. And right now, obviously, we need to focus on the bus maintenance. And that's why I want to take the time today to tell you that we are dealing with it. It's not because we didn't want to deal with it before. It's just that we had other priorities. The train was one of them. And now we're working with the teams. I'm often in garages at the various shifts. I work with people. That's the way I do things. I'm not alone in my office. And I like employees to share their ideas with me. And I know that this year is a very important year. We will be starting to see the city of Ottawa reaching the world-class cities. Thank you.
We have 3 delegations registered to speak today. So we'll go to our delegations first. Our first speaker is Kenny Vandeland. If Kenny is still here. So come on up, Kenny. We have a seat will open up at the front here. Yes. And thanks for your patience. I know it's been a long morning so far, but welcome. So you'll have 5 minutes, and then you may have some questions from councillors as well.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me here to speak today. My name is Kenny Vandeland, and I attend Canterbury High School. To get to school, I take the LRT from home to Herdman Station, and then I take either the 48 Elmvale or the 48 Canterbury to get to the school. Since the beginning of the school year, I have been late more often than not because the bus does not come to the stop on time. Because of this, I wake up every morning stressed that I won't get to school on time. Most days, I walk into class late and I miss important information. And when I have to stay after school, it is almost impossible to get home in less than 3 hours because the bus doesn't show up when it is supposed to. It is incredibly important that students and others can get where they need to be on time. This is an issue that I have seen impact so many other students. We need to be able to get to school on time. Everyone in the city should be able to rely on transit. Whether you are a parent picking up their kids at daycare, getting to work on time, or a student going to school. I'm not here today to ask you to take the bus away from somebody so that my peers and I have more reliable service. I'm asking you to ensure that everybody is able to arrive where they need to be on time. If a bus that starts at Herdman Station and ends at the school is late, that means there are not enough buses. I generally use transit to get to where I want to go. This includes shopping, hanging out with friends, getting to school, and getting to work. I would love to support transit in the city, but it is getting harder every day. You can change this. Make the service work better. Invest in transit for everyone. When transit works well, citizens will respond by buying more passes and taking the bus and train more often. But it has to work for everyone, or else it won't work for anyone. People need better. They deserve better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There are a few questions for you. Councillor Carr.
Hi, Kenny. Thank you very much for taking the time to come out today. My first comment would be that as a parent of 2 children, one who is still in grade 12 in high school, that I would be remiss to not mention how impressed I am about the fact that you care about getting to school on time and that you make it a priority. I find that in itself quite impressive, I have to say. So at your school, Canterbury is an art school. It is the only art school in the Ottawa Carleton District School Board. I believe there's one in the French school system as well. Would you have any idea how many of your peers come, or some of the neighborhoods they come from, that you go to school with. You mentioned you come from Centertown. Could you give me an example of some of the other neighborhoods that you have friends from at that school?
I have friends from all around the city. I know people that come from as far as Stittsville. So Canterbury really does reach the entire city because it is a specialized arts school. People come from everywhere. I can't pinpoint exact neighborhoods, but they tend to be pretty far out.
Yeah, thanks. That's my understanding too, is that about 85% of the school population actually comes from the entire catchment of the city, and there's only about 15% that is actually drawn from the core of the catchment area. So it's not a neighborhood that is well served by, they don't have 600 buses or anything that serve the area, and that really does make it unique. You mentioned that you also take the bus on weekends, and have you found the service comparatively, do you tend to be able to get, not that you need to be on time for shopping, but do you find it more reliable when you're doing general errands than it is when you're trying to get to school on that 48?
Yeah, I tend to take the train around like on weekends and stuff to get to work because I work in Centertown as well. So usually the train does arrive when it is supposed to, except when it stops running.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And I'll just mention, I did come to your school last year to do a presentation to Mr. Blowers. I think it was his civics class, and it was on the life of an elected representative, but it actually turned into a whole discussion on OC TRANSPO, and I heard from students all over the city who relied on it. So I will be asking questions today, but I want to thank you very much for taking the time out of your school day and to speak to us about those challenges. It is really important, especially when you don't really have any other way to get to school. There is no other choices. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to be here.
Councillor Trosser.
Hi, Kenny. Thanks for being here. So Kenny's a resident of West Centertown, and I do think it's important for this committee to understand that just as Kenny was explaining, people commute from all over the city to go to this particular school. Can you just explain what a typical morning has been like?
So I leave my house at 8 o'clock. I take the train from Pimisi Station to Herdman. And then when I arrive there, which is around 8:25, I would say, I used to wait for about 5 minutes, and the bus would come at 8:30, and I take that from Herdman directly to my school. But recently, we've been waiting for a long time, and it started coming around 8:45 to 8:50, and it's about a 20-minute ride. So by the time we get to the school, we're walking in as classes have already started.
Okay, and what has been the impact on you as a student to be consistently late to school?
I think teachers have been pretty understanding, but I have had teachers in the past that ask me every day, like, why are you late? Why are you being here? And I've had to explain to them that I have no control. The bus has not come, and I've had to make up like certain work and talk to my teachers about what I've missed.
I bet that's really stressful. Yeah,
it is.
When you're a high school student, you don't necessarily have the ability to say, sorry, I'm late, and always get a pass for that, right? Yeah, okay. Well, I just want to thank you so much for coming here. Just so you know, Kenny took the day off school to come and present to Transit Commission. It's a really big deal. And I want to thank you for caring about your city, for being involved, and I'll have some questions for staff after about how we might fix this. My understanding is that this recent set of delays has something to do with the delay in repairs to specific buses, to mechanics, but I would really ask, and I will be asking, OC TRANSPO to really prioritize buses that get kids to school on time, because it's not fun to be waiting in the cold.
No, it is not.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Councillor Plante.
Oui, allô, merci Kenny beaucoup. Merci d'être là.
Thank you very much for being here.
What Councillor Truster says, because I have this issue as well in my ward with kids from Lower Town who are trying to get to high schools outside of Lower Town. We only have one French language high school, so they have to leave if they're not in the French public system. Do you find, because of the issues you and your friends have been experiencing, that people just sort of default to cars, they take a hand-me-down car by their parents, or it just sort of is leading to more car usage because they're finding that the system doesn't suit them to where they need to go at this young age?
Yes, for sure. I know many people who have, as we're getting older, getting driver's licenses and started driving to school. More often, parents have had, I think I've had friends whose parents have had to start driving them because of bus cancellations, and they're just not able to get there on time anymore.
Okay, that was my only question. Merci beaucoup.
Okay, I'm seeing no more questions. Thank you, Kenny, for joining us today, and get back to school.
I will. Thank you very much.
Hello?
Good morning, Sally.
Was that an introduction to me? Because I didn't hear any of it. I was watching your lips move and didn't hear anything.
Okay, well, we can hear you.
Okay, I can hear you now. I just didn't hear the introduction or it's your turn to speak, Sally. Any
It
sort
is
of
your
instructions.
turn to speak. We are, our attention is on you, Sally.
Okay. I've written what I've prepared. So, of course, my name is Sally Thomas, and I'm from Paer, as you likely all know. I would like to speak to you about the pilot project in Blackburn Hamlet and how it affects TRANSPO. I would like to take my time to express to you how much of a slap in the face this initiative is to people with disabilities who use the bus, who use TRANSPO. While I appreciate the need to improve ridership, I wholeheartedly disagree with using TRANSPO resources of any kind. Now that the decision has been made, I would like to point out some things. You have proven that the fare box can be attached to the post behind the driver's seat, like we've been asking for all along. More importantly is the fact that I have used all 4 buses that these boxes are in, and even successfully tapped my card one day for the first time, before someone thought to cover it up. Even with them, TRANSPO continues to run 30 to 45 minutes late on a regular basis. And to me, that's defined as at least once a week. Imagine being late for work at least once a week, indefinitely. Imagine being an hour late for a night out with friends, indefinitely. Temporarily able-bodied folks have several options. The majority of TRANSPO users do not. Uber isn't accessible. Accessible taxis are non-existent, not to mention unsafe. In closing, I continue to advocate for our community because the city continues to give me reasons. It's sad, it's infuriating, and it's disheartening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sally. Are there any questions for Sally Thomas? Okay, I'm seeing none. Thank you for raising this, Sally. Perhaps there'll be questions later on that. We'll go next to Danica Coote, who's also joining us online. Good morning, Danica.
Hi, everyone. My name is Danica Coote, and I'm one of the 2 co-presidents at Canterbury High School. So Kenny invited me here today. She informed me that she was coming to deliver a speech on how public transportation affects students at Canterbury. And she asked me as one of the co-presidents to come and represent the student body. So I just want to thank you very much for having me here today to speak on an issue that is very important to me and all the students at my school. So as you discussed before, Canterbury is an arts specialized high school that takes in students from all across the OCDSB. I personally live in Stittsville, so it takes me a really long time to get to and from school every day. Students at Canterbury are continuously late to school due to poor public transportation services. Education is incredibly important, and students should not be late to school on a regular basis because buses are late. They are missing out on valuable learning time in the classroom. While taking the 646 home from school, there were never enough seats for everyone on the bus. There were many times when I would have to stand with my heavy backpack for nearly an hour. Many Canterbury students travel over an hour to get to and from school every day, and this is just too long for students to be standing with heavy backpacks. I know many, including myself, are starting to experience back problems at incredibly young ages, and that's just not right. On the way home from school, I would have to switch from the 646 to the 61 at Hazeldean and Edgewater to get from there to all the way to my home in Stittsville. There were many times where I would be waiting up to half an hour for the 61 to come as it was extremely late or sometimes would not show up. I would dress in several layers in an attempt in an attempt to stay warm, but there were still many times where I was close to tears because I was in so much pain from the cold. My yellow bus that runs from Stittsville to Canterbury was canceled for almost the entirety of semester 1. I got it back after winter break, but for many students who are not so fortunate, this is still something that they experience every day. I'm sure that many of you did not walk, bike, or take public transportation to this meeting today because you are aware of the unreliability of its services. I am here today to represent the entire student body at Canterbury High School by asking you to please ensure that everybody in Ottawa is able to use public transportation and still get where they need to go on time. This is an issue that mainly affects students, the elderly, and citizens who come from lower income families. Gandhi once said, "The true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members." Public transportation is primarily taken by those most vulnerable members of society. You have the power to change these issues by investing more in public transportation and really making it a priority. More people will take public transportation if it is reliable. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. There's a question from Councillor Carr.
Hi, Danica. Thanks very much for being here. I should have mentioned previously when I asked Kenny a question, I'm not only a councillor on the Transit Commission, but I represent Alta Vista Ward, where Canterbury High School is located. You mentioned you take the 646. Are you aware of the other students, the bus routes, like Kenny takes the 48, the 40? Do you have any idea? Do you know if I've missed any there? Are those the primary routes that are servicing Canterbury, the 646 in the morning and afternoon, and then 40 and 48?
Yes, I believe there's the I forget the number, but the one that goes to Greenboro is also a pretty popular one. But those are the main three OC TRANSPO buses.
Okay, excellent. And so you know, frequently people are. It's not uncommon in your first class of the day to see people wander in late. I take it, or there's there's lots of clubs before school as well. So this is fairly common that people are having difficulty arriving to things on time.
Yes, it definitely is. There are lots of events that take place in the morning, such as like so we have different arts programs. So the music programs might do like a concert in the main lobby, and it's just little things like that that you missed out on, as well as like valuable class time that just really impacts students at Canterbury.
Okay, perfect. I think maybe what I might do is reach out to you and maybe arrange a time to come and talk to some of the students who are experiencing difficulties. If you could help me coordinate that, I'd appreciate it. But thank you very much.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, thanks very much for taking the time to come today and talk about the particular challenges at Canterbury. I know it's been pervasive, and I know in particular last month was a challenge particularly. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Councillor Carr. I have a question for you, just from a Stittsville, Canada perspective. Do you know roughly how many students at Canterbury are commuting in from Stittsville and Canada?
Quite a few. I remember in the morning there would be 2 buses that would come to Hazeldean Mall, like the 646s. There would be one smaller one that came first, and then there would be a second, like longer one. And the smaller one would fill up rather quickly. Like by the time it was out of Bell's Corners, I think it would be almost full. And then the second bus would kind of catch like everyone who didn't make it onto the first bus. And these buses are like packed by the time they reach school. So there are quite a few students coming from Stittsville and Canada.
You're on mute, Glenn.
Oh, thank you, Councillor. Thank you. So they're crowded buses. Are they generally on time for the Route 646?
I'm sorry, it's glitching.
Okay, it's glitching. We've got a connection issue. We'll give it just a second.
I'm sorry, it's glitching. Would you be able to repeat the question? It's glitching.
We can hear you. Let me try again. So for the 646, is that bus generally on time, on schedule, or are you seeing a lot of
Be able to repeat the question? Can you hear me?
I think we're having some connection problems. Danica,
I can hear you now.
I'm going to try to follow up with you.
Sorry,
I'm going to try to follow up with you online because we're having these connection problems. So thank you for your delegations, and I'll follow up with our clerk offline, 'cause I wanted to follow up on some issues specific to the West End. So thank you for joining us today.
Okay, thank you for having me.
So that concludes our delegations for today. We'll move now to questions for staff on any of the topics that were raised by delegations or presented in the update today. And we'll start with Councillor Brockington.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to start by saying that the depth of information and statistics and data that we are getting now on the Transit Commission compared to the last term of office is like night and day. The information that we're getting now is far superior. We've talked about a number of issues, and I know it's a long presentation, but we are in a completely different field or category when it comes to making sure the Transit Commission has at least key metrics and statistics before us to help us better understand the state of transit. I'm not saying we've got everything, and I'm sure this will evolve, but boy, what a difference. I wanted to talk a question about the presentation that talked about retention and how in less than 2 years, both in 2023 and 2022, employees left at a rate of 9.2%, 2023 and 9.5%. Are we having the opportunity to speak to staff before they leave and ask them specifically what contributed to their decision to leave the organization, given that they weren't here for more than 2 years?
Chair, the answer is yes. We just put in place a process which consists to speak with people to know exactly why they leave the city. But I think my colleague Olivia has said that before as well. It's for sure because we have shortage of staff everywhere, right? So maybe people will just come and try us, and unfortunately, they would see that it's not for them. It's unfortunate, so that's why we're trying to explain them in advance what will be the job, and with the untypical schedules, working with people, which is great, but it's not for everyone. But yeah, the answer is yes, and we are collecting data on that, and this is something that we can share as well with the Transit Commission.
Just wondering if Ms. McGinty has, if she could expand on that. Do you know reasons in particular that sort of newer employees have not stuck around?
I'd have to get back to you on that. There's a wide range of issues that anecdotally, we hear. There's a formalized exit interview process that we're rolling out that will get us more tangible information. But yeah, it has to do with a wide range of things: work-life balance, the geography of the city, the multitasking, personal life. So yeah, can get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Madame Amical, you announced a series of terminations earlier this week. Both unionized and non-unionized positions were cut. Can you go into some detail about the types of jobs that were cut? It just basically had high level, but the public has been hearing for years the need to recruit, hire. All we hear about are shortages. So who exactly was let go from the organization?
Thank you, Chair. So the good news is we're still hiring mechanics and bus drivers. So the employees that will let go are the red vest, as we heard. The reason is, when we have to shut down the train, we don't have sufficient people, so we have to review the way that we're doing things, etc. So that's why we took that decision, because those people were never enough, and we cannot have 100 people just waiting for a shutdown, because we don't want any shutdown anymore. Anyway, We have, we used to have, I think, 5 people who were in charge of the warranty, and now we will have 2 because of the number of buses. We know now it's lower than before. We retired old buses. And I would say as well, I don't have the list on top of my head. This is something that we can provide for sure, but we have 10 people, 10 MPE, which are section head. We have one person who was working, I think, customer service, those kind of people. So it's 35 unionized and 10 MPs.
Okay, thank you for that detail. And my last area I want to focus on now is the on-time performance of buses. I appreciate the breakdown of buses that run on a frequency of greater than 15 minutes and less than 15 minutes. However, the data that you've provided throughout the year is more or less stagnant. We're not seeing like an upward trend on performance for our buses in both categories. One is higher than the other, but they're more basically flat. So we've all agreed that reliability is our Achilles heel. This is something I say over and over again, that if we can't ensure that our residents can count on the buses operating at the published or scheduled times, we're not going to get people from their local communities to our LRTs. So I really need to see at a future presentation your plan. We've talked about hiring and other things, and I acknowledge, construction and weather compound the situation, but we're not seeing these metrics go up in any significant way. And so, I want an opportunity to hear from you, but bus reliability continues to compound or compromise our ability to provide that reliable service. And I think you've acknowledged this in the past, but I want to hear from you about, all right, how are we going to get to, I've asked you before, what's the percentage we're heading towards? We're not there, we're not close to being there. So what's the plan?
Chair, I think the 99.5, as I explained, is we need a better route review. This is done. We know that we will come with that this spring. We need to have our staff, mechanics, bus drivers. Olivia Megonti just shared with us the plan. And this is our 3rd year that we have to hire more than 300 people. It's massive. I have been told that in the past at OC TRANSPO, it was a big deal when OC TRANSPO had to hire 200 people. So this is common now for us, it's 200, 400. So, and with the shortage, and we know as well, because Rami just shared it with us, we have a lot of things to do on the maintenance side. We don't have right tools to help us to have a view. I used to work in the past, on my former job. I could click on my computer to know where are the buses, why we are short of buses, etc., and why do we have lost buses during the day. I don't have that here, and I think you know me now. I'm a driven data, so I need data to be able to take decisions. So that's why we are working on M5. We are working with the engineering department to have some KPIs on the MDBF, the mean distance between failure. And this is something that we'll bring here in April. Richard Older, who's in charge of the engineering department, is working with the maintenance department to see what kind of preventive maintenance we can put in place to avoid having those corrective actions to do. We know we are short of mechanics, and Ken just presented as well our plan to attract more apprentices. That will take time. It's not an easy thing. It's not something that you finish your school, you come here. We were going to teach them how to do the job, and we have the challenge to retain them because unfortunately they are young and they will work night and weekend. It's not attractive. So we are working on everything. And as I said in French, buses are, this is where, this is my expertise, okay? And we know what to do, but I can tell you that will take time. We are doing the right thing. We need to have people who know very well buses to be able to manage the department. This is not something that you can improvise. You need to know what you're doing. So this is another challenge because we have to bring new people, new skills, and Rami shared that with us as well, and we are moving forward. I'm very, very, very confident, and I'm positive, as usual, but I want to be clear with you today. The objective is still 99.5. We know where to focus, and my goal is to present you as a counselor of the Transit Commission, the trend for sure, but to be able to augment the reliability before to work on the on-time performance. It's the reality first, it's the reliability first. So we know now, the bus driver, we have the plan is very clear, and the maintenance department, the plan is clear as well, and I can see that there is a huge difference versus January and now, but I don't, I will not say that we have achieved our goal. It's not the case, but I can see positive, slow trend, which is encouraging.
Okay, I don't have another question, but I wanted to clarify.
Je n'ai pas d'autres questions, mais je voulais préciser la service ponctuel et le rendement ponctuel sont deux différentes choses. Le service ponctuel est important, oui, mais plus le rendement ponctuel. C'est avec cela qu'on a de la difficulté. Notre capacité à avoir un rendement ponctuel est ce qui cause le problème avec mes résidents. Avoir un autobus qui arrive à l'heure. Et comme commissaire, ce que j'aimerais savoir de vous sont les horaires pour atteindre votre objectif. Vous avez dit que vous vouliez que le pourcentage soit plus élevé et vous connaissez les ingrédients nécessaires pour y arriver. Et moi, ce que je vous demande, c'est quand pensez-vous y arriver? Montrez-moi une feuille de route.
By the city manager, we provide input to sort of annual work plan, but we come here because we receive updates from you, and I'm looking for, like I said, that roadmap to get us to where we want it to go. So I don't mind if that's parked and that can be addressed more fully next month, but this is key. My whole focus this term of council when I ran for re-election was the Achilles heel of OC TRANSPO, in my mind, is our on-time performance with our buses. If I can't get people from their local neighborhood to the LRT station, we've lost them. They're not going to take the LRT. They're going to look for mom to drive them to school, or they'll find other modes to get where they need to go. So that's why I raise this, because it's a significant issue across many wards. I know you know the issues, but I, as a commissioner, want to see us spelled out your plan, the timelines to get us there. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Chair. I do have some specific questions about the situation at Canterbury School, including the situation with OCDSB. I understand there's been discussions about accessing that school for a number of years, but I think I'll get back in line for those, and in the meantime ask a series of smaller questions, if that's okay. With respect to the workforce adjustment, Madame Ricard, you mentioned that you tried to focus on eliminating vacant positions. So we heard that there was 35 employees that were laid off. Were there vacant positions eliminated as well that won't be staffed again? And if so, how many were eliminated?
Chair, thank you for the question. I would say 150 to 200 positions have been explored, or and we started to work on that last June. So, which this analyze, we voluntarily didn't fill positions that became vacant, but the position that we were identified. So I don't have exactly the number because some are capital funding and other are operational funding, but roughly it's 200 positions that we have considered.
Okay, thank you for that update. And then just speaking, I think maybe this is a question for Ms. McGinty. You spoke about the recruitment of bus operators, but then on the next slide, you talked about how some of them were leaving early. Overall, was the recruitment of the bus drivers, I think, don't have that in front of me, 340, was it balanced out, or was there a net gain in bus operators?
Last year?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. So we saw a higher number of dropouts and failure rates through the training program that higher than we anticipated. And as I mentioned, this year what we've tried to do is really dig deep in terms of how many do we actually need to get a net increase. I would say there was a net increase, but still a need. So I can get back to you with more details on that.
Okay, no, that's good. Thank you very much. And I mean, obviously, it seems very ambitious about the bus operators that need to be hired. And I'm also hearing, obviously, with the mechanics, that that's also a challenge, and that's a Canada-wide problem, if I understand correctly, with the issues with the mechanics. I know on the mechanics issue, you mentioned you're dealing with Skilled Trades Ontario. Is there any work that's being done with the federal government at all, or are you just strictly working with the provincial government in terms of recruitments?
Yes, Chair. We have been only working with Skilled Trades Ontario for now. The program expanded quite drastically over the last 2 years. We went from 5 apprentices to 30, and we're probably heading towards 60 at some point. So right now we're at a point where the program is being looked into to be better developed, become more robust, and if there is an opportunity to work with the federal government, we will for sure explore it.
Okay, to be a bus operator or a mechanic, do you need to be a Canadian citizen, or you don't need to be?
We are also, yes, Chair, we are also exploring that option as well, but we're trying to explore the local market first, and then we'll look into it, and I'm sure my colleague Olivia can comment more on that.
I was just going to add, you just need a work permit to be able to apply.
Oh, okay, thank you very much. I'm kind of all over the place here, and I realized my opening comment was going to thank you all for installing the shelters at Herdman. So I'll just mention, I was trying to start with a very positive comment. Very much looking forward to those. I was wondering about the cost to run the trains all night. Had this been budgeted into the budget early on? Was that a cost that was foreseen, or was that more something that was decided to do in terms of the weather forecast? Like when was that decision made, and has it been budgeted? And we've had a fairly mild winter this year, but there have been other winters where we've had a series of ice storms.
Mr. Chair, I can answer that question. With regards to the budget for the Line 1 operations, no, we don't set aside a separate budget for running trains overnight. We know that going into the winter season, it's really only going to be a handful of occurrences in which we do that. So this year being a lighter winter, in terms of our requirements to run trains overnight, won't have as much of an impact on our overall budget. But no, we don't set aside a separate amount of money for running trains overnight.
Okay, no, I just wondered about the incremental cost, but that's good, thank you. Just 2 quick questions, and then, actually, I think the 3 quick questions. I think I asked this before, but I forgot the answer, sorry. Who pays for the red light and the speeding infractions? Is it the employer or the employee?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, that's a good question. The employer pays.
Are there any restrictions in place, like if an employee continuously gets infractions, is there any sort of mechanism in place? If you could just describe that to me a little bit.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. There is a disciplinary measures program which we put into place last year and launched in September. And this addresses specifically infractions or violations associated with safety, regulatory, or policy at OC TRANSPO. And it overlays an existing system of progressive discipline to address matters where we have recurring issues associated with, in this case, for example, speeding or red light camera infractions.
Thank you very much.
Chair, si vous permettez, je veux juste rajouter parce que on a parlé du côté.
We talked about disciplinary measure, but for 2 years, we did a lot of awareness campaign. We talked to people, we observed on the field, and we're now, as my colleague Paul said, we organize 1 day of recycling. We remind people why it's important to stop at the red light, to put their flashing lights on and this and that, or their turning signal. So we did a lot of raising awareness before getting to the discipline part.
Speeding and red light. Okay, so speeding includes the automated speed enforcement cameras in school zones as well. Okay, on the absenteeism, I think it was 14.7% average for bus operators or 12.1 on LRT operators. I may have switched those. For absenteeism, does that include sick, holiday, unpaid leave? That is the whole gamut? That's just when there's no operator there, no matter what the circumstance? Like anybody that was scheduled to be there, or do you work in the vacations as well?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I can answer that question. Yeah, it includes all types of absenteeism. It excludes holidays and vacation. Those that the pre-planned, it's like, but the LTD, WSIB, the sick leave, all that type of absenteeism, it's an all-in.
Okay, and my last small question before I get back in line is, I think you mentioned the train itself is 50% pre-pandemic levels, bus are 70%. Did you track that by day of the week at all? Like, could you tell me the difference between a Monday and Friday versus a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
Mr. Chair, yes, we do track it. We haven't been looking at that question of whether the rate of recovery pre-pandemic. We've been watching just ridership on different days during the week, and I can say Wednesdays and Thursdays are definitely the busiest days on the train. But how that compares to pre-pandemic is not something we've looked at closely, but we have the data.
Okay, excellent. I'll give you a heads up on my questions next time, but thank you very much. I'm going to hop back in line for a more longer complex question, just to give others a chance. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Leeper.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the presentation, as always. I guess I just have 2 areas I want to ask questions around today. The first of those is with respect to that on-time performance of the buses that are more frequent than 16 minutes. So we're seeing 61%. We've seen that those are buses like the 14, it's buses like the 11, it's buses like the 7. Those are the buses that are going through just the nastiest crap in the city, right? They're just going to crawl down Elgin, they're going to crawl down Bank, they're going to crawl down Somerset. They're not keeping to a schedule because I don't think it's possible to keep to a schedule for much of the day through some of those arterials. Should we be scheduling those buses anymore? Because I see the stress on the part of the operators. If there are problematic behaviors with respect to speeding or red light running, I think sometimes that is a result of just the stress the operators are under to gain back time on what is an unrealistic schedule. Should we not be, in order to achieve a good level of service for customers, looking at frequency and not worrying about the schedule?
Mr. Chair, to some extent, yes. And that's one of the questions we have to look into is what's the changeover point between when you do want to concentrate on on-time departure from the initial point and even spacing between trips. Since the pandemic and since the budget and service level changes we've had over the last few years, we don't have as many routes that run as frequently as we did. So we don't have the 95 running every 2 to 3 minutes anymore. We don't have the buses on other routes running every 5 or 6 as we did. They're down to every 10 or something. So that's work we need to do. But the other challenge to us is we do still have to schedule what time each operator should come to work and where they should be to pick up the bus from their from the person who was driving just before them. We still have to find the way to provide the right information to customers on what time we suggest, how much time they should allow to walk out to the bus stop, wait for the bus, make the connection to the train to complete their trip. And these are all aspects which connect with what's the right way to schedule and what's the right way to measure.
We're getting some presumably really good data from, the new GPS has been fantastic. Transit has been a godsend. I'm fortunate to live in a really transit-rich neighborhood. I'm served by 4 or 5 buses that I could take in order to get to the LRT at any given time. I don't look at schedules, but I'm reasonably certain that we must be developing a much better idea every day of what buses frequencies and arrival times actually look like. How are we incorporating that data?
So, Mr. Chair, as the councillor says, you've seen the transit app on the front end providing the information to customers. We have a parallel, similar but much bigger app running internally where we're monitoring the location of all the buses, recording everything. And with that system in place, the second of the 2 pages that my colleague Joel showed you was what is our long-term plan to start to not just collect the data, but then analyze the data, use the data, drive some decisions that we can make internally, recommendations that we can make to you, connected to, how do we allocate the time along the route? How much buffer time, how much recovery time do we build between trips? Where do we recommend to you new transit priority projects, such as bringing the bus stop out into the traveled lane and away from the curb, or putting up a bus priority or a bus influence turn signal? How do we give you and Transportation Committee advice on how to make trade-offs between exclusivity for buses and general use of the road? These are all part of the ongoing work that Joel talked about in his second slide, where we're establishing a service reliability, really, I don't know what you'd call it, but beefing up a center of excellence and assigning people whose job is to work on that, to find those and to turn it around and then find the next improvement after that.
What are the timelines on that work?
Well, Mr.
I hear a lot about, we're working on it, and when are we going to start being asked to make some decisions around that?
Mr. Chair, I'd suggest that it's a continuous thing, that those decisions are being asked all the time. I think we'll see maybe a stronger focus and a little bit quicker on the turnaround from detecting to driving. So we're not, we're responding with our transit priority recommendations to you to responding to data rather than responding to policy direction in the TMP only. Okay. So you'll see a faster loop cycle on that. In your ward, Councillor Leeper, we've seen some improvements with bus stop changes over the last couple of years that you've agreed with. We'll have similar discussions with councillors in other parts of the city as required. We're also building a lot of this work. We already have built a lot of this work, but the customers don't see it yet, into the work we did in the bus route review, which feeds into those bus route changes coming up later in the spring, where we've restructured routes to take advantage of transit priority measures, where we've consolidated resources to make some routes more frequent, and changed the operation of ends of routes so that we can get out of the way into stations where we can do turnaround tasks and have time to take those breaks and those recovery times. So it's all continuous. Every quarter we should see some improvements, and to Councillor Brockington's point, we hope that we can make our improvements faster than the new operating challenges from traffic and construction come on to us.
Yeah, it feels like we're heading in the direction of having to make a decision about frequency versus scheduled reliability. And maybe that's not fair to say that that's a decision that we need to make at some point, but that's what it feels like, and it doesn't feel like we are being asked to make that decision. So I'll leave it at that. I know that's not a little obtuse, I'm sure. So the second thing I wanted to ask about was employee injuries. That number it's going up at I think an alarming rate. Can I ask, are there still buses that don't have barriers? And if they don't have barriers, why don't they? And is there funding available to put those barriers in?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, could you just sort of clarify your question, please?
I believe that there are still buses that don't have operator protection barriers on them. Mm-hmm. Is that the case? If that is the case, why don't all of our entire fleet have those barriers? And is there funding available to ensure that they do all have barriers?
Okay, thanks for the question, Mr. Chair. It's my understanding that all the buses that we do put into scheduled service have the barriers installed. Perhaps my colleague from maintenance could speak to that specifically, but that's my understanding.
So, Chair, the Enviros that we were supposed to retire, so those don't have barriers. However, a discussion that we had with the Union ATU 279, we are now we will try to see if we can take barriers from retired double-deckers and put them on those buses, because unfortunately, because we are late with the e-buses program, so we will need to keep those buses longer. And now this situation cannot continue like that, so that's why we will put barriers on those. But it's handful buses, it's not a lot. All new buses have their barriers, and 60 buses or Nova buses, all of them have their barriers.
Okay, I am glad to hear you say that, it would be unacceptable to have an operator take a bus out that doesn't have a barrier. And when I'm looking at these the operator injury and the top three causes, there's struck caught, which is one issue, but assault and stressful event, I think are, some of those are tied directly to interactions that are happening at the front of the bus. And if an operator is taking a bus out, I want to be confident that that operator is protected by a barrier. So every time an operator picks up a bus, my expectation would be that the barrier is in place before they're asked to use it.
And Chair, I just want to bring something here, because we have to understand that even if we have the barrier, if let's say a customer give, I don't know, the barrier, we consider that as an injury. okay? So I just want to make sure that we understand that. It's not because we have the barrier that we will not report challenges.
Understood. Okay. Those are my questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tierney.
Great, and thank you. And my councillor colleague Leeper, I remember we made that tough choice last term to put the barriers on. And just real quickly, in a nutshell, now our buses provide information on stops, français anglais. We have the barriers. Are these measures helping make our operators feel safer? Do you feel overall? I've spoken to many, and they do enjoy the barriers for sure. I know that.
Yeah, I think so, definitely, and maybe Paul can speak on that more than me. But definitely, with the barriers, it's better. But as I said, that doesn't mean someone couldn't, send a coffee or yelling, and it's unfortunate, and that's why last fall we decided to have a kind of campaign to just try to work with our customers that, hey, the driver is here to bring you to point A to B, so respect him, those kind of things. So we're trying to do the best as we can.
No, and that's okay. I don't need further answer. We don't have to belittle that. You're right. We have to protect our operators if we want to keep them, because that's probably half the battle of keeping an operator. Politicians, we can get spit on. That's part of our role. But an operator in the city of Ottawa, that's completely different. I did want to make a note. I do like Ms. McGinty's presentation. So 450 operators. That's a big number. And I like the fact did you say you're going to report back to commission? I think that is a great thing. We'll be able to keep tabs on that, help keeping that promotion, even as councillors keep that information out there, because we definitely, you're saying 30 trainees every 3 weeks. That's a good number. So you have a lot of work ahead of you. So thank you for that. There was a couple of questions related to the mechanics component and the training. What happens with that? Because I'm hearing stories that a lot of our mechanics, which are in high demand, they go and receive the training, and there's a pretty large cost to training. It requires a lot of experience to be able to do that, and a lot of time being an apprentice. And then, they're fully certified and they walk out the door. And that costs us a lot of money to train them up. Is there any preventative measures about X number of years must having to work with the company for payment of the instruction and education that obviously will provide them a very great income after they're complete?
Chair, our program, as I mentioned in the presentation, we have signed the MOU with our local union 8279 to make sure that we have a program where these apprentices, when they come back from college or from their education, that they will stay with us for a certain amount of time to compensate for the investment made in their education. However, they can elect to not to pay for it themselves, and at this point, they have the option to leave the organization, but we do a lot more to keep them with us as much as possible.
Right, and we test fully with legal professionals within HR, how far we can push to ensure that we maintain those operators to the best ability we can.
Yes, Chair, that is correct. Our HR and labor relations representatives work closely with us on these memorandums.
Okay, great. I know some senior operators and senior staff over there, and some people come in the door, and before they actually get a torque wrench onto a wheel or out the door, and it's unfortunate because they want them there too. So it helps us, behooves us if we don't try to keep them on board. The other question, obviously, the new world of electric busing, even though it's delayed, obviously from a mechanical perspective, it's probably night and day. I assume the training required for each, is it different? And if so, what's the regiment for that from e-buses versus diesel-powered buses?
So, Chair, I have Richard online. He can answer on that, but definitely we have to work with a lot of people to see what kind of training we can provide in-house, what else we have to give to subcontractors, etc. And the fact that we are dealing with a shortage of staff, that brings another level of complexity, but we are working on that. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, at last TC will provide an update on the e-buses so we can bring that aspect. But this is something that we have on our radar for sure.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So as part of the procurement for the two fleets of electric buses that we've already made, that we expect to arrive by the end of the year, a component of that procurement includes the training of a trainer program. So we will actually be paying the provider of the bus, the manufacturer of the bus, to provide that training. And then once we have trained staff that are trainers, they will then roll out that training to the rest of the staff. The actual program of training has not been established yet, but that's something that we'll be setting up shortly for the rest of this year.
Great, that's good to know, but now I could see what a bird's nest it is because we're really trapped. We expected the e-buses, we thought that regimented training would come in. Oh, wait, we got to keep our diesel-powered workhorses on the road. Now we've got to keep maintaining them because we don't want to go buy brand new ones yet. It's a real a bit of a bird's nest actually, on how we keep the service running. So I wish you the most luck. I look forward to the next TC meeting to hear specifically around the e-buses, because even though we don't really have to focus on that, we will have to focus on it at some point. And now our plans are sliding probably by a couple of years between mechanics and maintenance on both sides of the fence, learning about the buses. Even today in the opening presentation, did I hear correct? China actually manufactures 90% of the electric buses. That's a lot. And I'm assuming that we're learning a lot of lessons on their procurement style, their kind of buses that they're selling versus what we're doing with us, and making sure that we're buying the best product so we don't fall into a situation like out west where they had a problem with their manufacturer of their e-bus. Would that be correct? We're keeping our eyes on that, especially you, Renee, being a part of that board. You're watching that on a constant basis?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair.
Great. Thank you very much, and thanks for your dedicated work.
Okay, back to Councillor Carr.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to ask a specific question with respect to the Canterbury situation. I don't think that this is a new situation to people at OC TRANSPO. I remember this being discussed in the community many years ago, and I remember at the time the OCDSB, Councillor Brockington, you were probably on the board at the time. I remember the school board saying, well, we're eventually may open another art school, and that would solve the problem, and that was about 15 years ago. I'm wondering if anyone has an update on any discussions that have happened with the school board with respect to bus service to Canterbury.
Mr. Chair, we've had discussions with the School Transportation Authority on behalf of the school board over the last 3-4 years. The primary was when they advised us that they would no longer be providing the transportation, the long-distance transportation from the West End to Canterbury. Previously, they had done it with contracted yellow school buses. They took a decision to no longer do that, so that fell to us then to integrate it into our transit system. We've got an excellent crosstown service from Canada to Billings Bridge and beyond on both ends, where people could make a connection to the frequent service that goes from Herdman to Canterbury. We've did that for about a year. We bumped that up a little bit with some dedicated buses that would run directly from Canterbury back to the Canada-Stittsville in the afternoon, Canada really, in the afternoon. We added those direct buses in the morning. There's good and bad with that. The students who are traveling to Canterbury get a more direct service, but the other customers along the line who are going to other places that aren't Canterbury will generally step back and not board those special buses. So we deal with all these issues. We're at a, we think we're at a fairly stable state now where we're providing an appropriate level of capacity. I do understand that means that some people will stand. That's the case on busy routes across the system. We haven't talked to the school boards recently about whether they are interested in taking that long-distance transportation back over. They've given no indication that they've got that kind of availability from the private sector. So we'll continue to manage that route. We'll continue to deal with, through all the other things we talked about today about service reliability, all of those same tools that we're applying to each route apply to this route specifically as well. These two routes, the 48, the 646, and the other routes in the area that, dealing with variability before the trip starts, dealing with variability on the trip, making sure we schedule enough time on the trip, and making sure we've got good real-time information to go to everybody. These are all parts of managing that service.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. I actually went on the OC TRANSPO site to look at the schedule for the 646, and it's actually missing from the drop-down menu. For some reason, on the route planner, just to flag that, if my recollection is correct, that's about a 97-stop, 100-stop bus service that runs in the evening, is it? From Canterbury, at the end of school, from Canterbury out to Terry Fox? Or is it both ways? If you can just remind me.
It could be. I've got the morning here on my screen right now.
Okay.
So it's it leaves Terry Fox. There's two buses.
It's two. Okay.
They both
For some
leave,
reason I couldn't
and they
pull it up.
take an hour and 20 minutes
Yeah.
to go all the way from Terry Fox to Canterbury. So it's if anyone's going for the full length of that trip, it's a long trip.
So when I've gone to Canterbury to talk to students, I went last year and I'm intend to go again this year, and I hope maybe somebody from OC TRANSPO could join me. I'll reach out about that. One of the challenges they explained is that people that aren't students are getting on that bus and there's no room for the students. So is there any way to mitigate against that? Or I guess not really. Would you need more dedicated dollars from OSTA or the school board or whoever else?
So we have done what we can to mitigate that, and that is we've given it a different number. So rather than calling it a Route 88 special trip to Canterbury, it's now got that special number 646. But we don't screen people getting onto buses as to where they're going and who they are and what their qualification is. So if there's overloads on that trip, we will add service on that trip. If at capacity, either with a larger bus or an additional trip. If there's people being left behind, then there's obviously a shortage of capacity, and we'll deal with that. You mentioned dedicated funding from OSTA or the school boards. We have none of that right now for any of the services that we provide for students traveling to and from schools. The contribution that we get from OSTA and the school boards is that they purchase fares from us for their customers.
Okay, yeah, that's correct. Sorry about that. Thanks. Okay, and then I'll follow up separately just on the local routes that service the school, like the 48 and the timeliness of those routes. I understand January was a particularly tough month with extra shortages because of mechanics and breakdowns, and certainly understand that. But it is a route that, given that there's not a lot of 600 service in that neighborhood, that I would like to see. But thanks for those questions, and I will reach out to hopefully have someone from OC come to Canterbury with me about specific issues before the route review goes into effect. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the school board issue, it's a school board funding and transportation challenge that's now falling on the backs of OC TRANSPO in the city. So there's some unfairness there in the funding. Downloading again to municipal government. I had one more question, which was the issue that Sally Thomas raised about the location of the card readers, the payment devices on Paer TRANSPO buses. Could staff address that? Is there a plan to move those, or any comments?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. So technology continues to change. And we brought a project to the Transit Commission and Council for approval that came out of a lot of discussion, both at Transit Committee and at Community and Social Services Committee years ago to bring, well, there's, another technological change. When Presto was first introduced, there was no solution available from the vendor for Paer TRANSPO service. So our priority then was to develop an automated way that customers on Paer TRANSPO could pay their fares. And we procured a solution which we call Paer Pay, where people can pre-purchase passes that are recorded online, or they can pre-purchase a value on an account, and we will debit that account as they travel. Then there was technology available to accept Presto cards on Paer TRANSPO vehicles and Paer TRANSPO minibuses and contracted taxis. And so we brought that in. We purchased that from the vendor, and that's a small little device that attaches to a tablet that's already on the taxis and already on the buses. But that device needs to be attached to the tablet, and the tablet is what the driver or operator uses to get their work orders and to see their status and who they're picking up. And so that step, when we brought that in, that required customers to hand over their Presto card to the operator or the taxi driver. They would tap it, they would hand it back then to the customer. So that was still a step forward from what had been required previously, where it was pre-registration of Presto cards or using Paer Pay. Along with that, or next in that sequence, we replaced all of the life expired, the old green Presto card readers on the conventional fleet with the red Presto card readers, the new ones that everyone who rides on conventional buses is familiar with. And that newer technology on the conventional fleet also allows us to do the same on the Paer TRANSPO minibuses, that with these new readers, they don't need to be controlled as much by a central computer which isn't on Paer TRANSPO buses, but is on conventional buses. They can operate more autonomously. So we are starting now to put those new Presto red readers onto the minibuses in our fleet. We're starting first with the minibuses that we're using on the on-demand service, which, as you know, also operate in Paer TRANSPO service Monday to Friday. And moving on from those 10, 20 buses, we'll be expanding to more and more of the Paer TRANSPO fleet with the red card readers, and they'll be mounted right up where the customer can tap them, and they no longer need to hand them over to the bus operator. But when those Paer TRANSPO customers travel on contracted taxis, they will still need to hand their Presto card over to the taxi driver so that the driver can tap it on the device which is up at the front of the taxi. So I couldn't find a way to make that story shorter, and I apologize.
Yeah. Is there a rough timeline for when the entire Paer fleet would be fitted up with the?
Not yet. We're continuing to work on it. Certainly when the new buses come, they will all have the red readers on them, but I expect that we will probably have all the red readers on all of the buses before the new buses come. Just don't have a timing yet.
Okay, so it's a matter of months. We're not talking about 5 years or something. It's in the near future. Okay. I'm seeing no more questions. Thank you to Renee and Sue, Olivia, Paul, Pat, Joel, Rami, Richard, and Ken. A lot of updates as we get every month. Lots going on. Appreciate the updates and the answers to the question. I also appreciate the follow-up. I think each month we have questions and ask for you to come back with more information, and we get that within a month or two. And the discussion we're having coming up on the fare compliance, another thing that this commission asked about a couple months ago, and here we are. So appreciate the updates and your flexibility in responding to